Good evening and welcome to the Georgetown School Committee meeting of Thursday, April 14th, 2016. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, to begin the meeting, we will approve regular session minutes of March 24th, 2016, governance minutes of April 1st, 2016, Baker Adams session minutes of February 25th, 2016, superintendent evaluation session minutes of February 25th, 2016, safety minutes of March 10th, 2016, and acceptance of warrants 40P16 and 41V16.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, we have David Casson here from the high school. Thank you for coming. I love how you guys are all taking turns.
Oh yeah.
You know, you spread the wealth a little bit, so that's great.
Meet more of you, and that's awesome.
How are things going?
Pretty good.
Report cards today?
Yes.
So how are you?
Just in case any parents out there haven't seen them. No, I'm sure they all have. I was just joking.
We had the blood drive last week too. Which
Yeah.
was
Yep.
really good. First time I've ever given blood.
How'd you
Experience.
feel?
It's a little dizzy, but it was alright.
And so how long did you have to wait to go back to class?
About 20, 25 minutes.
Okay, and they gave you some sugar and,
Yeah. Mhm.
good. So how many people showed up?
I'm not sure. I think close to 40 maybe.
And it was open to the
Wow.
public.
I believe so. Yeah.
That's good.
Mhm.
That's good. It's a great cause.
Yeah.
And sports are going
Mhm.
well. I see them practicing out there.
Yeah.
That's good. Does anyone know, like, when the actual first games begin?
They've had their first.
We
game.
have
The-
baseball?
Lacrosse.
They have a game
Yes,
tonight.
baseball has a game
Baseball.
tomorrow, Saturday, and I believe they have one
Wow.
tomorrow.
Was it the first lacrosse game that was played in the pouring rain
Mhm.
that we won?
Yeah.
It was a good game.
Do they not cancel lacrosse? Is that one of those sports that they play regardless?
I
The
believe
weather is
so.
part of the sport.
Yeah, like
We have a
soccer.
turf field now, so.
Yeah, right.
So you-
Giant
it's all,
turf
it's
field.
all in, it's not, we're not playing in the mud bowl
Yeah.
anymore.
Right.
But the fans still
right.
showed up, as far as I know.
Did you happen to go to the lip sync
I
event?
did not, but I actually saw some videos of
I
it
have
online.
too. I
Oh,
heard it was
great.
so much
It was
fun.
unbelievable.
I really wanted to go.
I really wanted to go too. I had a school building committee.
It was really good.
And it's like,
Did you go, Margaret?
Yes.
How was it?
Julie, Margaret, me.
It was awesome. From the moment we sat down and they started till the very end, it was just, it's amazing to see the talent. And then,
Yeah.
never mind the teachers and administrators and the lip syncing, but the students.
Oh, yeah, the kids were all over it.
The acapella and the band, I mean, it's like,
Oh, yeah.
these so many talented people.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I love that you included
Program.
the booklet in there because then I didn't realize that the children were participating as well. I thought it was just the staff, but that's really putting themselves out there, which I
Oh,
think is
oh.
really great.
Yeah, they did put themselves out there. It was,
That's
it
good.
was hysterical.
And it was for a great cause,
It was,
the food bank, which I think is great.
yeah.
feed the children.
Feed the children.
Yeah, that's great. That's
And,
great that they do
and
that.
Megan Pitcher, you remember there was a speech contest, and that was actually the prompt. So she got up and read her, delivered her,
that's
her
nice.
speech. She did a nice job. It's really
Oh,
good.
That's great. So were there a lot of people there?
It was packed. There was
How
not one
many?
spot. There was not one spot
Oh,
left.
that's good.
It was sold out.
And that was the
I don't know
rainy night,
when we've
too.
ever sold out something in a really long time.
So is this gonna take place of Dancing with the Stars?
Well,
Is that the,
I think Heidi was looking for something a little different, so,
I
you
think
know,
it's
I
great.
think they'll change it up, but the Dancing with the Stars, I mean, Heidi's a professional dancer with her husband, so she has that troupe that she works with a lot. They out of the goodness of their heart, agreed to be the professional dancers, so, you know, you can only do that so many years in a row too, try to squeeze it in, so I think it just kinda ran its course a little bit, and I
Right.
think it may come back again, but this was a new idea that they tried, and the participation, there was a lot, I mean, there's a lot of
That's great.
participation from the staff. The food service department did a number, and Rudy and Diane Newton. It was just
No, how
great.
come your name was omitted from it?
Well, I gave the prize. I had a job.
Somebody has to do it.
Were you
a judge? I was not a judge. I sat in the front row. They had
Yeah,
a little seat for me,
Anthony,
and
I like Anthony Messina,
yeah,
Laura.
Anthony. No, Laura
Oh.
LaFlemme.
So who was it?
Wasn't that amazing? Her and Graham Terry. It was on.
Did they lip sync as well?
Oh God! But they did, and they were so dramatic. It was.
A duet from Frozen.
Yeah.
This is like Jimmy Fallon.
Oh,
what he
that is
does.
so funny.
It was so
Hilarious.
good.
You know, the wig with the.
She had a little wig. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And Graham, he's very, kind of stoic, and he was just like so dramatic. It was unbelievable. It was so good.
Well, that's good.
It was
glad
so
that they
good.
did that.
Yeah. But I wish it was taped, because I think the community would have
So
really.
it's all
loved
over the
it.
place. Well, all the kids
Oh, I
probably.
forget, you have it on all the.
It's all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, good. I haven't seen, I saw, Rudy and Diane posted a couple. I saw those on Facebook, but I didn't realize it was all over the place.
And the gala was on the first, and I heard it was.
That was excellent too.
It raised $15,000?
Yes.
That's awesome.
They did an
That's
amazing
great.
job. It was a fun.
It was,
fun
it
night.
was a really nice decorations, the
That's
luau.
good. That's great.
Yeah.
Tropical
Now-
vacation.
I read in the paper, and I wanted to ask for clarification, was Corey Seepy there? Because in the paper, it said that Corey Seepy.
No, that was a
Okay.
mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
it was a
said that
mistake. It was
he
Anthony.
presented
Anthony
her.
who presented it to her.
Do you remember Mr. Seepy? You must remember
I
him.
do remember him. I never took band though.
Okay.
I'm chorale.
Okay.
Yeah.
The students, I thought for sure if it was him, if that was accurate, the kids would have told me, because they
No, it
loved
was,
him.
it was Anthony.
Okay, well, that was nice that Anthony was
Yes.
able to do that. I'm glad it was a
mix up.
success.
Yeah, he made some nice comments, and they're very,
That's good.
they're very good colleagues and friends, so he spoke from his heart. It was
Yeah.
very nice.
We'll miss her.
We all,
Well, thank you for
definitely,
coming.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, is there anyone here from the public that would like to talk about anything on the agenda tonight? No? Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions about the superintendent's, information she provided in the packet, which I always enjoy reading? There was a lot in the record.
There was.
It was a big pile.
yeah.
There was a lot in the record. Does anyone have any questions about that? No? Okay.
Thank you for providing all that.
So we can move on to, we have Donna Straight.
Yep, we're gonna have, I think
Donna?
we're gonna have Julie, all right, Julie
Julie
and Margaret
and
and Donna
Margaret.
are gonna come up first. Have like a little triad there.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Great to see you all.
So Margaret and I are gonna start off tonight with, an overview of response to intervention and how it's working at Pembroke School. And, then we're gonna turn it over to Donna, and she's gonna talk more.
I'm gonna talk about, give some special education updates, talk about the programming, and then I've brought the social emotional program staff and behavioral health task force, which is part of the RTI. And we're gonna give you an overview and have some discussion about those programs.
Okay, great.
So, when we began our response to intervention program, our purpose was to develop a systematic approach to interventions and to set a direction for the district. And through that committee, we organized 4 subcommittees. And one subcommittee was the PLC, a professional learning community that would, teachers would work together to develop opportunities for professional learning in specific areas that were interesting to them or needed to be researched more within response to intervention. Also, a reading subcommittee was organized, a math subcommittee, and a social and emotional subcommittee. So, the overview for our PLC work, well, did you wanna talk a little
Well,
bit about that?
again, the concept of a PLC is to provide opportunities and time for teachers vertically, meaning, through the grades, or horizontally in the same grade, to meet on a particular topic. So, it's, often there are protocols, so you're deciding how you want to structure that conversation. You have a goal in mind that wants to come out of that conversation. And so, one of the subcommittees looked at what, again, in schools that have RTI, how that PLC works, because, again, the response to intervention is how you're going to provide for students, and kind of a subcomponent of that is you also are learning about the work, and you're learning about various aspects of, collaborating with your team. So, to do a PLC, again, one of the hallmarks is time. And usually it does involve a release of time so that you have a 2 or 3 hour period on a pretty regular basis. So right now, we do have time in grade level meetings, but that's a 40-minute period of time when teachers, the students go to specials. So that's it's twice a month that we have that time. And then extended periods of time on professional development days. But, and we'll talk about it when we look at the next steps, but we are looking for ways to carve out more time in the day, so that maybe we can have longer grade level meetings, maybe a 2 hour period rather than a 40-minute period.
And how would you find that time?
Probably getting subs, so to elongate a planning period. So if a teacher would have 40 minutes, then maybe a sub for another hour, so we're, creating a longer block of time. And again. Time
is always the challenge.
Right. Right. But time and collaboration is also one thing that teachers time and time again indicate as a need when we're talking about response to intervention and how we provide for students and how we look at data and then how we decide what we're going to do. It always comes up, we need more time to do it. And it's not just time up front. You can't do all the work before school starts because we know education is fluid. As you're going along, it changes, it evolves. Children's needs change, and you have to have time to plan how to respond to that. So, we're looking at how we might do that. And again, it's a next step, but maybe next year, looking at that 6 to 8 week period of time, which is when we progress monitor for students that are getting that intervention. So maybe after we have that data in that 8 week period, maybe then we have a longer period of time to discuss, what we want to do, and then continue with the regular grade level meetings in between.
I moved on.
Oh, so then the reading subcommittee, they looked at assessments, they looked at, then through those assessments, the areas and how to identify the student needs after you get the results. And then when we look at, okay, what do students need? What curricula do we have? We already have, and then what do we need to purchase in order to meet the needs? And then along with that is how we structure the intervention time. And this was the first year we had a designated, we called it WIN, what I need. And in grades 3 to 6, it was a half an hour carved out time. In K1 and 2, the time was within a literacy block. So students were pulled out for their intervention in K to 2 by an interventionist. And then again in 3 to 6, there was that half hour. So at some points, the teacher provided the intervention using a particular curriculum, and then sometimes the interventionist did it, depending on the student needs.
So then the grade 3 to 6 would go out during the WIN.
Yes. Well, or they would go out or stay in, depending on what intervention they were provided. And then basically it was the same structure for math, looking at the assessments, and then math, we don't have as many interventionists, and so we, the way we structured the math time was a little bit different. Classroom teachers took some of the math intervention groups. In a couple of grades, John actually took students who were above benchmark, so he did a little extension. And then and then Francine Blair, who was a math interventionist, worked with primary.
And then in sixth grade, the WIN really looked different than all the other grades. And we had the half hour that we carved out in the day, because as you know, students rotate through the 5 content areas. And then the WIN, during that period of time, some students received services. And then the 2 literacy teachers provided literacy intervention. Math, Corey Chanette provided math intervention. Joe Patella did an interdisciplinary unit with about 20 students where he would combine, and I think we talked about that before, he would combine science, ELA, social studies. And then Robin Linehan provided a STEM, so kind of an enrichment.
So Margaret, when this happens, do you go in and take a look at how things are going? Like when Joe took
Yes.
and did the combined, so how is that working?
Well, it worked well for the first year of doing it. Again, there was no paradigm.
Right.
You know, it was our first time doing it. So what we did learn early on, we didn't have an enrichment for ELA. But then as the year went on, we did try to build in that time so that students would have more writing. And we didn't have a STEM the first round of WIN, so we built that in. And so we're learning how to better use that time as we go along.
And I don't know if you mentioned it or not, Margaret, but some of what I need might be an extension or an enrichment of the learning. So I don't necessarily need an intervention or remediation, but I would benefit from having an extension of something that's already happening in the classroom. So that's another piece
Yeah,
that we looked at
right,
developing within that realm.
Yeah, and teachers were providing that.
How many, or what proportion, maybe is a better way to ask, how many students are involved, are getting the interventions?
Well, again, depends on the grade. In the primary, K1 and 2, we are looking at that lower 20%.
Okay.
So that's, and based right at the beginning of the year on that Dibbles assessment. So, and then based on teacher feedback. But right off the bat, we're pulling those students for intervention.
Mhm.
And then as they progress monitor, some go out, some come back in.
Sure.
Then for students that are in grades 3 through 5, again, we're using the MAP data and we're, trying for that lowest 20% and also based on teacher feedback.
And what about grade 6? You
And
said
then,
that was
and then
different.
grade 6 is a similar model, but because some students are getting that is a time where some students get their special ed intervention. So it's their, or not intervention, it's their instruction. And then it is, again, it's not, because the structure, some children are getting, everyone had an opportunity to participate in Mr. Patella's interdisciplinary and also the STEM. So even though a student might be in need of an intervention, there are times where, again, you may struggle in one area, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't have the opportunity to participate in something like that. So we're not finished, we have another round, so we are looking to make sure that everybody gets to participate in that. So although we are still looking at students in need of intervention, we also want to make sure to provide that opportunity.
So when you say the lower 20%, so if a child doesn't fall within that realm, but the teacher sees that there's an issue, they can.
Then we'd say, you know what, let's put them in, let's
Absolutely.
put them in.
Okay.
And again, what would happen during that time would depend when we're back in that reading, when we're looking at the area of need. Some children need help in fluency, so they're going to get one intervention. Some children need help in comprehension, so they're going to get another intervention. And then we do have children, wow, wait a minute, they need both, or
Right.
they need literacy and math, so which way do we go? And then those are the decisions where the teacher says, well, I really think they should be, I'd like them to do this during that time, so that's what we do.
So I will say, it's definitely a heavy emphasis on the data and looking at it and trying to determine the fluidity of how that practice works. So it's not regimented, it will be and is fluid.
Right.
Right, so it's not the same people all the time in any given circumstance.
So that is kind of what I was wondering about, is what do you use to track the data? Which systems?
We have, each data point that we collect has its own criteria. So we use that criteria to determine, or the grade level teams and teachers use that data to determine the greatest need and work the intervention from there. So, I mean, our map data, for instance, is
But
is
exactly what
aligned.
intervention,
Yeah.
or what
Right.
Oh.
assessment?
Right, well, I mean, like, if you wanted to just look at what's happening in the second grade and you know,
Yeah.
which students, how many students and are receiving which interventions, do you have something that would track that on a kind of a?
Do you have a program is what
I-
you're
oh.
saying? Do you have some
Our
type of a software
coaches-
program?
From your lips to the
Integrates into-
technology.
Right, from your lips to God's
That's the
ears.
dream,
To
Pam.
say it right
Well,
now.
yeah, and that's kind of a
That is the
pet interest
dream.
of mine. I would like more
We
student
definitely
information software, and
would
I know
love
it's a
that.
matter
There's no
of
question.
money and funding and, but
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, and I
So you're just doing
understand
paper and
you would like
pencil.
that
We're
as
doing
well.
online spreadsheets, Google Doc, whatever
Right.
it takes to collect and house that. But yeah, absolutely. We've looked at other at companies that could offer us that. And it's expensive, there's no question about it. So right now, we're using like a giant Excel spreadsheet or
And we come to
Google
meetings with
Docs,
like
and everybody
10
brings their
pieces of paper and-
So it's just, they're
And-
just.
but
But there
Binders.
are some Excel spreadsheets around.
Back in the day methods.
Right,
Right,
right.
yeah.
I mean, when you have to collect it, you have to
Old-fashioned
collect it, no matter, you know what.
I wish we could
So,
provide more, but
yeah,
at
yeah.
least there is Excel.
Well, the guy from the DSAC, I mean, we're talking to Steve, because, you know, he's talked about maybe helping us create a bit of a program that we can
Yeah,
use.
he's really been a great resource for us, and he does this visual analytic data for the state, and we've been in contact, and I've been trying to explain to him like what I think we need and how it would look, but yeah, it's really just the creation of it and how that could happen. So he's a genius, and I would welcome any support he will give us in that arena. We were supposed to meet, but he's been sick, unfortunately. But hopefully we can wrap that up and put something together before the end of the year. That would be a great help, I'm sure, to everybody.
Right, but the good news is we're collecting lots of different data points and really analyzing what we have on the different students. And it might vary down to some of the particular interventions and things like that, so we can really track the specific areas that children need
And that's
us
just
to monitor. So it's a little more laborious than it might be, but you know what? Everyone's getting the job done, and that's the intention, so.
And it's really such an exciting program. I mean, you're able to reach out to those students who struggle, who may or may not have disabilities, and, you know, able to really bring to the forefront whether they need to be assessed. And I'm very excited about the whole program, so I really appreciate everything you're doing. It sounds.
And it's a wonderful
I wish
way
it was
of
there when my kids were
ensuring,
younger.
it's a wonderful way of ensuring that students who do need some assistance, it isn't, oh, well, we need to put them on an IEP in order to give them some interventions. Like,
Right.
you know, there's some excellent structures in place now that we're moving forward to really catch those kids early and help
Right.
move them forward.
And then
so.
if they don't make progress, you would have all that data, and you'd know it's time to evaluate, and it's, yeah.
Exactly.
And then it's also not a mystery as students move through the grade levels.
Mhm.
You know, we have this consistent data that we're looking at and these consistent interventions. So you can say, well, for 3 years, you know, for example, this student struggled with this concept, geometry, we'll just make it up. You know, so you can kind of get a sense over time, you know, how that progression happens and the work that's been done. And it's specific to the need, which is
And that's
great.
where the student information tracking gets important too.
Yes.
So you
Oh,
can look back
absolutely. Yeah.
on one individual or
I think that's the
a
next
group.
step for us, is figuring out what that structure would look like.
Because we can look back, but we just have to look back through a lot of pages.
You have to
Right.
like find the files and.
Right.
yes.
Right.
So again, the next steps are the professional development that we have been meeting with the people from DSAC who are wonderful and very supportive and helpful. And so they're going to be working with us in professional development, looking at assessments, how to read that data, and then how to form groups based on the results. And then again, looking, as we're starting to build our schedule for next year, which the schedule is so crucial to being able to have that time. And so we'll be looking at that and how to provide time for longer meetings. And then we're also talking about the schedule for when, because in each grade, there were pros and cons of the way we did it this year, and so we want to take a good look and make sure that we can tweak that and adjust it when we have to. And then I know, the middle school was the next step, so I think next year, that's maybe where it will go also.
But there's definitely a strong foundation to build from. And I think if we start to look at how we'll move those assessments forward and the intervention, carrying those interventions through, there'll be some great work happening.
Yeah,
for
we've
sure.
worked to explicitly connect the teachers at the middle school level with the teachers at the elementary and really look at having those interventions across the district, so there is that continuity for students and they move to a new school and they're starting over with something else. They can continue on and make progress.
So tell me a little bit about that, how you incorporate the elementary with the middle school teachers. So how would they, like, is it that the middle school teachers would actually speak with the elementary teachers in terms of a particular student's needs, or, because that would be very different from what I understand occurs.
Right, so what we've done is we've looked at collaborating together, so Julie has her academic vertical teams where they're connecting and collaborating on what's happening in the classrooms, the type of instruction and assessment that we're seeing. And then in the special education department, we also have our own types of vertical teams for our various programs and the disabilities that students have, so it connects teachers in that manner as well. What we've done recently, or just this year really, is in selecting the types of interventions that we want to have, we've included those middle school teachers in all of the trainings, in those conversations with, which students are going to use what types of interventions, so that it is more of a succinct type of program and pattern that's going across the district. So really making those connections. We've engaged in conversations with how to change the transition of students moving from one grade to another or one school to another. You're going to hear soon from and meet the social emotional group. So we've already started looking at that planning piece for some of our sixth graders, and we have several events in place for those students where they're going to take a walk to the middle school and they're going to visit it and meet it while it's in session to start getting themselves acclimated. They're going to have a buddy seventh grader that they're going to spend the day with, just to see what that's like and get used to what's happening up there, because it really is a big developmental change for students to do that.
Sure.
So that's something that in our conversations together we've learned we really need to address that piece and ensure that they're going to
So
have
like
a
a mentor
successful
buddy.
transition. Exactly. Exactly. And then there's a whole visiting day for the entire sixth grade, which of course they'll participate. And we talked recently in planning with some of my team about looking at doing a day in August as we get closer to school for sort of that same group of students that really have difficulties with transitioning, and inviting them in for a morning and maybe do a scavenger hunt, remind them, what the middle school looks like, where's their locker, all of those different pieces to sort of help with that emotional angst at least, and like, oh, here's Mrs. Jones, remember you'll have her for English, or that type of thing. So, just having those conversations, and that's just an example of how it will work.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that will definitely help. Good.
So I'm going to turn it over to you, Donna.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll just show you how to.
Okay, good. And I'm gonna invite all my folks up.
I'm just going to go page down.
Page down. Okay.
Should go. Page down, I'll just bring it to the next.
SEL, social emotional
Learning.
Learning.
Leave room for everybody.
So we have a large team to support our students.
That's great. Welcome.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Thanks for having us.
After their long day working with our students.
Yes.
So as part of the RTI, as Julie had mentioned, is the behavioral, social emotional health piece of it. So what I wanted to do was really to give you a flavor of that piece of it as far as response to intervention goes, as well as when you get to that third tier program that we have a all of these folks are district-wide. We have from the elementary school right up to our high school teacher here to sort of represent what we do, how we work collaboratively together, and how we're looking forward to bring this into the mainstream of the schools as well. So I think what I'll do is start and let everybody maybe start with Jen and just kind of go around, introduce yourself and what your role is.
I'm Jen Doyle. I am the SEL teacher at Pembroke.
Bennett Paluziak, I'm the high school SEL teacher.
Amy Wall, adjustment counselor for the SEL program at Pembroke.
I'm Cassie Murray. I'm the middle school SEL teacher.
I'm Nicole Therian. I'm the BCBA for the middle high school and Pearly. And I'm Sarah Clifford. I'm the BCBA for Pembroke.
Nikki Murphy. I'm a district cognitive behavioral therapist.
So one piece that's important, and we'll get to that, is really understanding the significant need to have each of these individuals as part of the program. They each serve a different role and they have some different specialties that's really instrumental in making it successful. So we'll talk a little bit about, I'm going to incorporate the special ed presentation in this as well. You know, what is special education versus a tiered approach? What is the least restrictive environment? What does that look like? The program's flow chart that we have, and this, you know, we're always tweaking it to best meet our students' needs. We'll go into our RTI piece, and many of the people sitting here are also part of the Behavioral Health Task Force, which is a district-wide approach. And then we'll talk about our very specific SEL programs, and we'll discuss CPAC after that. So as you know, special education is really for students who are identified with very specific needs and they need a very specialized type of instruction. Some students might be diagnosed with something like a dyslexia or ADHD or have some area of concern that they need some help, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they need to have an individual education plan through an IEP. It means they might need some tiered approach, which is what, you know, Principal Marr and Dr. DeRoche discussed. So what we really want to do is really try and help distinguish that factor and ensure that you understand and the community understands that if there's a child who is struggling or needs some assistance in some specific area, we're there to do that and to help them. And, you know, it doesn't require an IEP. Yes?
Just so that I can wrap my head around all this, how many students are there in special ed in the whole, and then how many students are in the SEL program?
So overall in the district of about 1,500 students, we have 14.1% of students that are identified for special education, which is down about 2.5% over the last 4 years. And I attribute that to the fact that we are building up those supports internally for students. And with regard to the SEL program, that really kind of varies across the board. It depends on the student's needs in the moment. It depends on the age, what they need. It also depends on who's participating in the program.
So because for this year?
For this year?
I have 14.
We have 14 at the high school level.
There's 6 in the middle school right now.
6 in the middle school.
And we have 6. Pembroke?
Right, and we also pull in some kids that are not identified through an IEP. You know, maybe their school phobia, maybe they've had some recent trauma, maybe because particularly at the high school level is when they start potentially breaking through with some mental health issues and pulling those kids in to really try and meet their needs as well. We want to be inclusive to students' needs, not just, you know, put up the barrier if you don't have an IEP.
So the school phobia is something that I'm hearing a lot about lately.
Mm-hmm.
It seems, yeah. So give me just a little bit of your expertise on it as to what that is, because the last week I've been hearing so much about it.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that's pervasive not just in Georgetown, but it's
Right.
truly expanding everywhere. That's been a topic of conversation at my special ed directors conferences and my collaboratives that I attend, and it's certainly something that we're experiencing here in Georgetown. So for a variety of reasons, students develop this I don't know, I'm probably gonna turn it over to Nikki because she really is our expert in the therapeutic area. But it's an inability to attend school, or sometimes it's an inability to leave the home, and there's a variety of different reasons for it. So I'll let Nikki kind of define that a little bit and talk about how we approach managing that with
So then it
families.
isn't solely, say, we're calling it school phobia, but it could be related to really anything, like you said, leaving the house, like just being involved in outside activities.
So there can be a number of reasons why a student becomes school phobic, and I think
Yep.
that's a term that's used essentially in education, but it's not really used in the mental health field, because there isn't a diagnosis called school phobia. There's a diagnosis called specific phobia, and that specific phobia can be to school, to spiders, to dogs, to weather, can be to anything. Typically what you're looking at with a kid that's school phobic is any number of diagnoses, mental health conditions that contribute to that. So a lot of times it's really more generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder with agoraphobia. There's a number of them. Separation anxiety disorder when you see the little kids
Yeah.
at the elementary level. And the BCBAs can speak to this a little bit too, but there are functions of behavior. So what may start as, let's take a small child who has separation anxiety disorder. And has trouble coming to school because of that. Really what's indicated treatment-wise is family therapy, because often there's a lot of things going on in the home that need support, essentially to help that child get to school. And what I do at the school level is something called exposure therapy. And that's very comprehensive. I won't go into all the details of it, but essentially it's a treatment approach to gradually expose them to what the feared situation is in this situation at school. But what happens that sort of muddies things and makes it a little bit more complex is what may start as, for example, separation anxiety disorder, and so they stop coming to school, then turns into the function of the behavior, additionally, and you can speak to this a little bit too, but ends up being that they get access to positive tangible rewards. So for example, now they're home or attention, and now they're getting attention from mommy and daddy, and now they're getting to stay home and play video games, and so now you have sort of two different things that we have to address.
And they get to escape the aversive environment.
Exactly.
Right.
So there's a bunch of different functions of behavior, and there's also then the underlying mental health condition. So it's treated in a number of ways. For example, Sarah or Nicole might do an FBA, create a BIP off of that when they go into the home and they assess sort of what the function of behavior is, and then I'm gonna do exposure therapy. So we sort of take a multi-prong approach to bring them back into the school. And then when you bring them back into the school and into the program, in addition to that, they might then be phobic going into class. So then we have to gradually expose them to class. It's comprehensive, yeah. So you need to have a lot of experts kind of at the table to be able to really address this. And we'll go into sort of the different approaches that we take and the different ways we make that work. But for example, in my role, I collaborate extensively with outpatient providers, psychopharmacologists, the parents, to put together the treatment plan and then implement it together.
Okay, that was my next question. So usually the family is involved in an outside.
Absolutely has to be involved, yeah. Connecting with the family, connecting with outside providers or outside agencies is a key element to the success of what we can do for a student, because without that component, whatever we're doing internally within the school is not going to be reflected or generalized in.
And it's really important too to mention that it's not just special education
No.
students that
Well,
we're
I
helping.
agree,
it's,
right.
It's so many different students at all different levels. I mean, we see it at kindergarten, we see it at preschool, and then all the way up to grade 12. So
Yeah.
I'm working collaboratively with Nikki, with Nicole to create those, those plans based off of our assessments.
Right.
It takes a lot of players to make that work,
Yeah.
especially the family and the student, so.
And one of the components of my position is to do diagnostic evaluations, so I meet with the family and I diagnose what the mental health condition is, because that will drive what the treatment approach is. So often people think, oh, they're not coming to school, and the easy thing to say is it's the parents' fault. They might be contributing to it, but it's often a lot more complex than that. So doing that full diagnostic evaluation and understanding, just like Sarah's and Nicole's FBA process, those evaluations and assessments help us to then drive the appropriate treatment approach. But exposure therapy is one of the ways you do that.
So we'll get into a little more detail, because really everybody sitting here has a very important key role in that whole process when we talk about the program. Just getting back a little bit to the special education, so the goal is always the least restrictive placement in a continuum of services. So what we really want and what we really hope for every student is to be in the general education classroom and in the general education environment. So whether you have a IEP or you don't, that's where we want you to be. And then based on what the specific students' needs are, we start working our way up the pyramid to whether it's going to be what we refer to as Grid C services, which is services or classes that you're getting with specialized instruction, special education teachers, adjustment counselors, going into pull-out services, and then, you know, the most restrictive obviously would be an out-of-district placement, residential placement, or something like that. So as you work with students, the goal is no matter how high they go in the pyramid, we're always looking to bring them back down into the general education environment, and what are those things that we can put in place and implement to bring them back into the same area as their typical peers. So that's a lot of the work that we do there. That's really important. I don't know what happened here. Oh, I just have to put my glasses on, that's all. Okay. Nope, still not working.
What is it? You just will turn?
You have it on your screen, but it's.
I have it here, but
Yeah,
it's
but
not
it's not
showing
on.
there. Maybe Wes can, or Julie can help us?
Sorry.
Hi. All right, so I'll just talk a little bit while we see if we can figure out. So the other piece I just wanted to share was a little bit about what does special education programming look like in our district. And we really do work to have a continuum of services, which kind of goes back to, I think it was your question, Barbie, as to how do we work across the district to make sure that we're meeting students' needs. So it begins with our 3-year-olds, with our pre-K program, and we really take a look at what we're offering them. And that begins with working with the early intervention. So prior to them coming to us and prior to them turning 3 years old, there we are, thank you very much. Don't go too far. So we have a variety of different models. So we go into the homes, we go into the early intervention where the under 3-year-olds are getting some services to make a determination ahead of time as to what we need for them. And some of the things we have are a pervasive developmental disorder inclusion model. We have ABA opportunities to street trial opportunities, as well as we have our sub-separate program that we call the Greenhouse program. And it's for students who have some, you know, medically fragile or significant areas that we want to work with them individually. And if we look at that and roll that up, you'll see that as the arrows indicate, we have most of those same programs at the different levels. And as the students get older, we provide different areas of goals or objectives or standards or curriculum because we want it all to be age appropriate. We have some co-taught classes as well where we have special education and general education teachers teaching together with a smaller number of students. They are all language-based trained to meet those specific needs of those students as well. And that's a continual process that we're always making sure we're keeping people up to date and trained in those particular areas. Also at about the middle school level, and definitely when you get into the high school level, we start thinking about at age 14, what is the child's future? What are their vocational components, life skills? What are they going to do when they leave us, either when they get an MCAS diploma or when they turn age 22? Because some of our students we keep till 22. So we've been working hard to develop some relationships within the community where we have some of our students out working now. We train them in-house. We teach them what a work environment is like, how to fill out a resume, how to go on an interview, behaviors that you're supposed to have on a job site. And then using our job coach, we integrate them into these jobs and support them so that they have an opportunity to really experience life outside like anybody else. And we have connections with Pomodoros, we have connections with Noonan's and several other of our local areas. So that's a program that we're still developing, but we're pretty happy and pleased with the direction it's going right now.
And that's about transition planning.
That's
the
all
process.
transition planning, but
It begins at age
right.
14.
Exactly. So we really do have a continuum of programs, both inclusion and, you know, the pullout, as well as being across the district. So the other piece is the Behavioral Health Task Force, and that is another extension of the Response to Intervention Initiative. So what we'd like to do is kind of discuss a little bit, and I'm going to let my people here discuss that because most of them are on that task force and they can kind of share with you some of the things that we're doing. But an important component is the RTI triangle. We'll talk about responsive classroom, universal SEL, and some of the other areas that we're working in. So why don't I turn it over to, was it your triangle, Sarah?
It was our triangle.
It was our triangle,
It was our
okay.
triangle. So we met as part of the Behavioral Health Task Force for the RTI committee. We started that last year. Myself, Nikki Murphy, Troy Carr, and a few other people. I feel like I'm forgetting their names, but they were also part of that as well. And what we did was we looked at our, Mary Ann McGee. We looked at Amy Wall. We looked at the supports that we currently had in place at the Tier 1 level, and then we looked at the supports that we had Tier 2 and Tier 3. So we broke them down so that we could make them into this really nice visual triangle so that we would know what supports we had and we were able to share that information with the staff that we had. So really our job this year was to share that information, to let them know all of the supports that we currently have, all of the supports that we can offer at the different tier levels. And I think that by creating that triangle, it was a really good visual for us to keep us on track, but it was also a really good visual for the staff that we had or have, so that we don't tend to go 0 to 60. It's a process. So we start with the Tier 2, we look what we have in place. Okay, the tier 1 is not working, we move up to Tier 2. Tier 2, okay, you know, we've done this, still not working, now we might have to go up to Tier 3.
Yeah.
So I think it's been a really good visual for us to keep everyone kind of understanding.
I totally agree, Sarah. And it's also helped us coordinate our services. So Sarah's the BCBA and I'm the adjustment counselor. And so together, that triangle has helped us focus our instruction with students and decide, okay, does this student need a Tier 1 or a Tier 2 pragmatics group, or do they need a Tier 2 social group? And if so, then, okay, Sarah's covering the pragmatics groups and I'm covering the social skills groups. So it's really helped us to kind of coordinate those services, and also with Elizabeth Carroll, who's the other adjustment counselor at the Pembroke School. So that has been really helpful.
Exactly.
And Beth Daly at the high school as
Right.
well. She works closely with both Jesse and Bennett on their students. Because again, when you look at Tier 2, we're not just talking students who have special education needs, we're talking all students and how can we help to meet those types of needs. And so some of the areas as well are really looking at weekly counseling, looking at collaborating with the gen ed teachers in the classroom, as well as developing student accommodation plans.
So is the student accommodation plan separate from a 504? A student can have an accommodation plan without being on a 504?
And some of that is also looking at, you know, the district accommodation plan as well and pulling some of those strategies in as well. That's also
decaf.
Decaf.
Okay, and that's
Yeah.
up on the website. And do
That's
teachers
up on
make
the
use of
website.
that? As a resource to come up with different ideas for interventions or helps?
I think that much of that conversation takes place
Strategies.
during SAT, and probably Margaret could answer that better than I could, but I believe that that's where those conversations take place. And I know the consultation that this staff does with some of the teachers, they include those elements as well from the DCAP.
And part of the SAT team, so when they get a referral and they put together a student accommodation plan with different interventions, whether they be behavioral, academic, whatever that is, they then collect data over several months to see are those interventions effective. And if they're not, that's often when all of us or some of us may be called in to say, I might be called in to do a diagnostic evaluation, Sarah Nicole might be called in to do an FDA, because they might then need some Tier 3 intensive services. So the triangle really gives you this sort of step-by-step, you know, it's kind of like a gateway, you know, all right, so this isn't working, so what do we need? And we have to evaluate and assess and collect data at every level, because otherwise, how do we really know what's working, what isn't, what may be indicated, what may be effective for the student? So it's it helps us to individualize interventions for students.
And what's that time frame that you give, like a month or two?
I think it's different for different kids. So for example, if you have a child that has, has already been diagnosed with a mental health disorder, but they're getting tier 2 services because they're not needing intensive services yet. If that mental health disorder is significant, then you might give it a little more time, because you're not gonna think, let's give them a social skills group with an SEL curriculum that's evidence-based, and we think we're gonna turn everything around in 6 weeks. It's just not realistic, So it's very individualized for what the students' needs are.
I have some students that I see for social skills, and I'll give them like 6 to 8 week little bursts of social skills, explicit instruction, like step-by-step lessons, so that they, hand pick the lessons for them based on what I'm hearing from the teacher. And then after 6 to 8 weeks, and they're showing me mastery in those skills, then I can send them on their way. And then I also
really have to form a really close bond with these children too, which must be difficult because of their social emotional.
It can be challenging, but that really is the first step in
to build
all of
that.
the work that we do.
So then is it
right.
difficult for them to separate from you? After you've built up that comfort level and that confidence, and then you're like, okay, go.
You
For
would
both
think that
of
they
you.
would
For
have.
both of them.
It's actually that's such a great question, because I think, and this is how I was explaining to a parent the other day, is that it's creating a relationship, but it's also giving them an extra point person. So I'm on the 3rd floor. Amy's on the other side of the 3rd floor. Elizabeth Carroll's downstairs, Mrs. Marr, Mrs. Doran. It's just creating a larger pool of people for these students to go to. I have kids coming in and out of my office all day. Just, hey, how you doing, Mrs. Clifford? And that's a really good feeling for me, and I know it's a really good feeling for them. So even if I'm done seeing them for 6 to 8 weeks, they can still come in my office and say, hey, what's up? I'm having a bad day. Our relationship doesn't end after the 8
Right,
weeks
the
or
connection
6
goes
weeks.
beyond those 6 to 8 weeks, which is really nice.
Right, but I didn't mean that connection. I meant, they have this attachment to you now. So is it difficult for them to then move forward?
I don't think so, no. The kids that I've
So their goal is for themselves
Absolutely.
to move forward.
Absolutely, yep. And I think that their teachers appreciate that too. And when I work with their teachers and consult with them and say, hey, we've targeted this, and this, the teacher's like, okay, that's great. So that they know that they have those skills available, and the teacher really fosters that and watches the skill be generalized into the classroom. So they're also praising and they're also acknowledging all the success that the student has made, so.
And when a student moves into tier 2, that's when the parents of the family would be brought into the process and notified and.
Yes, absolutely.
Because tier 1 is just across the board. It's
That's-
something that every student has access to that happens, with
Right,
RTI, right?
It's
Just like
RTI.
RTI, only it's RTI for
SEL.
SEL.
Right.
That's exactly.
It's the behavioral side of RTI.
Yeah, it's a very important component of the RTI, as well as that school climate and culture piece of it.
So it's no different if you think of tier 1 as universal instruction.
Right.
Tier 2 is targeted,
And
tier
then
3
tier
is
3 is
intensive.
intense.
And it's just the
And it
behavioral
slides.
side versus the academic,
But
exactly.
just
Okay.
having the
Makes
structure
sense.
of RTI really allows you the opportunity to, interact and get in there and create interventions, which you wouldn't have had if we didn't have the RTI process. Well, you would have, but it would have been a little
more random.
More random.
Yeah.
We
Right.
wouldn't have had that structure, I feel
Yeah,
like.
it's
It
much
was
more
a really good
effective.
visual for us.
Yeah, it's an excellent methodology. So we also included in here a couple of visuals for you. Again, I'll let Nikki kind of speak to this piece of it.
So in our tier 3 programming, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail in a minute, one of the key components is a social emotional learning curriculum. So social emotional learning curriculums are created, evidence-based curriculums created to be taught at the universal level, to be integrated into the core. However, the way we use them in our tier 3 programming is to teach them intensively and explicitly, daily. Daily at the high school, and then in the middle school and at the Pembroke program, they're taught every other day. We use Alliance Quest curriculum, and just to give you a brief overview, this talks about sort of the 5 core competency areas that we're trying to help them develop, which is responsible decision-making, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship skills. So that's what you see kind of in that little circle at the top. These are the skills that we want them to obtain over time as part of that instruction, that curriculum. And then at the bottom, when you see the two arrows, it just gives a brief, benefits of SEL. And this is all research-based. There's extensive research to show, what SEL instruction does for kids, for all kids, by the way, not just for kids that need it at that intensive level. So you're reducing the risks of conduct issues, of aggressive behaviors, of, social emotional issues. And in terms of gains, I think something that's really important is there's, again, extensive research to talk about kids that get SEL instruction, they have 11 percentile point increase in standardized testing. So it greatly impacts their academic abilities, which makes perfect logical sense, doesn't it? Right? It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Nobody cares about self-actualization if they're hungry.
Right.
Or if they're
Exactly.
dealing with trauma, or if they're being abused at home, right?
Right.
So there's
it is
tremendous
good news.
gains. I mean, the SEL, the skill acquisition that they need, is key, and that's part of the curriculum, obviously. That's what we're teaching.
And we'll talk a little bit about the specifics because we've been careful to select something that's age and developmentally appropriate to deliver at the different levels. Right, so the school program, so I think, we're gonna get into some of the specifics, and what I'd like to do at this point is kind of turn it over to the teachers, and they can sort of talk about what happens within their classrooms, and the different approaches that they take with the students. So
I'll
who-
start.
Thank you.
All right, so my focus is a lot of the academics. Not that we don't, I focus a lot on what Nikki is, doing with the kids as well. Showing the kids that, academics isn't the only thing that determines success. We talk about the, communication, work ethic, emotional intelligence. So we supplement with each other, and, so that's always a lesson in the room. Work with such a broad range of students. And most of the all these students struggle with the academic demands and the social demands of high school. They struggle on their own to be successful. A big piece of that struggle is communicating with their gen ed teachers. Gen ed teachers are great. Every relationship we have, that I have with them is great, and we try to build it so the students have that same relationship with them, because that's huge, and that's one of the things we try to convey with the students is the relationship you have with your teacher can go a long way to academic success and finding
if I could
success in the classroom.
Just dovetail something in there, Bennett, that,
Yeah.
what's also helpful, as we said, there's a continuum of students, whether they're in the sub-separate program, which means they're exclusively in the social emotional room for some period of time or until they're integrated out. And Bennett's done a fabulous job in really building those relationships and rapports with the gen ed teachers so that they will come in and see the students and they will provide some instruction with the students one-on-one or do the types of things that is needed so that they start feeling successful, and because they've established a positive rapport, they're willing to take that chance and go into that gen ed classroom. So, I mean, that's been a terrific job
It's
that you've
huge,
done there.
And I have a paraprofessional in my room who's great, because if you think about, I have 9th through 12th grade, all subjects. That's a lot of teachers, a lot of content, to learn and to communicate, with all the teachers is a big task. So the paraprofessional that I have in my room is, she's been great this year, so that has been a big help. One of my favorite things about our program is we take kids that don't feel like they belong or connect to the school, and we help them connect to the school and give them a place, where they feel like they belong.
So Bennett, can you give me an example of that? Like a child that doesn't feel like connected. So what would you do to just give them that little sense of security or?
I mean, a lot of it is just giving them a place to go, whether they eat lunch in our room.
Okay.
And it's embedded within the curriculum that we provide for the students as well, where you're building up their social awareness, you're building up their abilities to really understand what their moods and their regulation is. There's some strategies that you teach about how can I take my dysregulated body and figure out a way to calm myself so that now I feel comfortable speaking to other people, or I feel like I have value to go and integrate within the community or go to the cafeteria. So that's a lot of what Bennett does in his personal development class too, so that all connects as well to their feeling comfortable. And I mean, I would say that your little group, the times I've been in there, it's like they're a little family sitting around.
Yeah.
That's what we
Yeah.
call our,
And we help them with baby
Yes.
steps along the way. I'll go and talk with them with the teacher at first, for the first couple of times, and then we want to build that independence so they feel like they can go, on their own. Or we'll walk them down to the lunchroom, and then eventually they can, do it on their own. So.
Well, the lunchroom is an intimidating place
Yeah, I know.
for anyone, right? So when
little
you're-
ones too.
You know,
Yeah.
certainly
Yeah,
is.
can I add something too, because Bennett and I did this, so when we came in, because it's big to create that sense of community, and these are kids that, like he said, they feel that they're kind of not connected to the school, they sort of feel like the rejects of the school, they do often, they don't necessarily have the best experiences at school, so in our program in the high school, we have the classroom and then we have a therapy room. And in the therapy room is the place where they take a break when they need to, if they're having a panic attack or whatever might be happening, they're starting to get escalated. They either can do a session with me, they can use a coping skill, we develop all of this with them individually. But one of the things we did to build community, because when I came in, that room was kind of a place where they didn't use it in an appropriate way, was we decorated the room together. We brought them all in together and we said, this is your space, okay? You're gonna own it. This is your place in this school that's safe for you. And so we painted and we decorated, and we got furniture, and we did all of that together as a community. And that really helped a lot to kind of connect them. And there was no more, after that, there was no more people thinking it was okay to punch a wall, or do behaviors that they did before, because now they owned it and it was theirs. Right? So we do a lot of those kind of things to create that sense of community.
And, where's Cass?
She's here.
Oh,
Yeah.
right behind me, sorry.
So I'm the middle school teacher, and just to kind of piggyback off what Bennett said, a lot of it is really creating that sense of community, and we really individualize depending on the student need. All of my students right now are in the gen ed classes, and then access me throughout the day if they need it, whether or not they're feeling overwhelmed or they just need a movement break from class, or sometimes they come in and they're just having a really tough day, maybe something happened at home, and they can start to advocate for themselves. Can I stay in the room today? Can I get some work and work on it? And then sometimes gradually throughout the day, they get a little in better space and they said, okay, now I can go back to class. So it's a lot of what Bennett said, and kind of hand-holding at first because they don't know the skills and they're not confident to be able to approach teachers on their own, approach the peers on their own. So because they don't have the skills, they're lacking how to age appropriately communicate with their teachers, with their peers. And if they don't have those skills, then we can't expect them to go ahead and do this and make all these strides. What Bennett said, my favorite thing too, is just the students saying that they have a place that they feel comfortable. I do have students that come up for lunch, but it's great because also they bring friends with them. So it's now not just the special ed and the kid in the program, it's other friends that they invite, so it doesn't have that stigma either of being just the special ed room. It's really everybody can come in and everybody can benefit from it. Our students work off individual plans, so maybe they need certain incentives every block. Maybe they need something at the end of the day. So it's really nice to create that rapport with the students and see what motivates them, because when students can, they will. And I have students that consistently shut down throughout the day, and the gen ed teachers are great with the communication piece and I don't know what to do, what can help. So, and it depends on the students. Some students, humor really works. So if they're shutting down, if you use humor, that can get them out of it. Sometimes if you just pair them up with a role model in the class, that can help too. So it's nice working with the gen ed teachers, and I think that Nikki and I go in a lot with the 7th and 8th grade team to do a little bit of training and also just to answer any questions that they might have in order to better support our students. So it's been really nice. With the 6th grade moving down, I feel like the middle school has really gotten cohesive. Unlike Bennett has the 4 grade, and I feel like it's just been a nice small gathering this year.
And how many kids do you have?
I have 6 right now.
6. Okay, and you have 14?
Yep.
But just to give some context to that, when I came in 4 years ago, there were 15 in the middle school.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it varies greatly
Yeah.
depending on the clinical population at any given time in the district.
I'm surprised to see the number go down. I'm happy to see the number go down, but
It'll go
with
up
all
next
the
year.
things
Right.
that,
Yeah.
why do you say that?
Because it happens in the 4 years I've been here, it's up, down, up and
Yeah.
down, and all over the place. Just depends on who comes into the district and,
Okay.
Right.
what emerges.
Right.
And that's just such a tough age anyways, that middle school tender age.
School's very hard.
Yeah, it really is.
But arguably, you want it to go down.
Right.
Eventually, because
Right.
you want the students to be able to have the strategies and skills so that this is something they need right now, but it shouldn't be something they need forever. They might always need a safe place, but
Right.
generally speaking, it's really what they learn to do on their own, and
And that's the positive aspect of having it across district and having all of these people communicate with each other constantly, share information about students, is that I would expect over time, as the students are traveling through the grades, that you're going to have less intensive services for the most part, or they're going to have a greater understanding of themselves and be able to access a way to regulate themselves, a strategy to use. They all develop their own individual strategies for how to manage their stress and what they need to do. And certainly we know as they get to be at those teenage years, which is why Bennett has such a heavy caseload, that's a time when we often do see some of the mental illness breakthrough students. Is right around that age 15. So it is going to spike at that point. But if we can kind of catch those kids early and start working with them, we certainly can't cure anybody, but we can certainly help them manage and be successful. So Jen has our elementary program, and I think you're going to talk a little bit about the program that you use, right?
I'm going to talk more about just in general, and Amy's going to talk about
about the
what we
Lions Club.
use,
Great.
But I will pass these out when Amy begins. So Amy and I co-teach a social emotional class 3 days a week with a population of 3rd to 5th graders. I am in charge of their educational needs, so if they are needing individual classes for any subject area and they couldn't be in the classroom, they might come to see me. I also am in charge of modifying their test if needed and giving them a place. If they need to be out of the classroom, just a quiet place to take their test, they can utilize my room for that. Amy and I are very thankful for the beautiful chill space that we have. We have little twinkle lights and pillows and a mat, and we really will bring music in there, and the kids can really just lay down and use the coping skill. It's been hugely needed and has done wonders for some of our students. Along with that, I will be in charge of their homeschool communications, so whether I need to call a parent or email a parent. Many get sheets that go home every day. We communicate with their behavior plans that Sarah puts together, and they earn points, and they can do stuff with those points, access the iPads, access a game with a preferred staff member, go see a preferred staff member. And I also manage 2 paras that come with my program, manage their scheduling, and all of us manage their behavior plans. And I think Amy's going to talk more about the class that we co-teach together.
Yes. So the picture that is on the screen right now is taken within our classroom setting. We have 2 spaces, like they do up at the high school. We have the classroom space, which is the space that you're seeing now. This is like a little chill out area within the classroom space. And then we have a calming room right across the hall from our classroom space. So our classroom space is set up similarly just to a, gen ed class. But what you're seeing is our self-regulation scale. So it's 1 to 5, and 1 being where you want to be, 1 or 2, happy and calm, all the way up to 5. So
You can tell by the
Not
faces.
Yeah.
Miserable.
Sometimes I have those
actually-
faces.
they have those
Don't
a
we all?
lot. Jen made little stick figures of the students with their actual picture faces on them, and they have Velcro on them, and they move them when they come in the classroom.
Which sounds creepy, but it's really cute.
It's really cute. It does
Funny, so
sound a
all they
little
have
bit
to do
creepy,
is-
but sometimes they do stamp it really hard up at the 5, but that's a coping skill, so it's fine. So as Jen said, we teach the Lions Quest curriculum 3 days a week. In addition to that, all the students in our program see me once a week for counseling, and then they also go to a lunch bunch, which is more unstructured, but it's still overseen by the other adjustment counselor, and it's a time for them to practice the skills that we have been explicitly teaching. So that's what this curriculum helps us do. It's evidence-based, it's standards-based, and it allows us to explicitly teach these social skills that the kids are lacking. You know, the kids that are at the level that we're teaching in the elementary school, they're all learning about self-management and self-regulation. The general education teachers, as part of Tier 1, help the students learn those skills. But self-management and self-regulation is a continuum of skills, just like any skill set. And the students that we have in the program are especially lagging in those skills. So we work a lot on the self-awareness piece and understanding what your body feels like, what your head feels like, how they can be doing two different things at the same time. Your body can look calm, but your brain can be going at 100 miles an hour, and getting them to understand the relationship between that and their actions.
Maybe I think a good example of this is the other day we were actually having words to go along with our scale, and one of the kids said, well, what about when you feel weird? So we kind of had a conversation about what does it feel like to be weird, and that's one of like those pieces of I can't self-regulate and I can't identify this feeling, it just feels weird. And we are able to talk about that in our social class.
Is it hard for them to match their feelings to those faces?
At first, it really is.
Mhm.
And at first, when they come to us in the
Because they
program,
don't know them.
they don't, and they have basic happy, sad, mad.
Right.
So what you just saw on the board was we developed tons and tons of emotion words. There are way more than that, but we found a lot of them that they might use and might be able to use and identify with at all of those different levels. And they were the ones who helped us figure out where those words should go and at what number on the scale they should go at. We weren't deciding for them. It was them having a conversation together. They have kind of grown as a community, even though we have kids coming in and, you know, into the program at different times of the year. They welcome the students, and I find that when the information comes from a peer, it's really taken more to heart and more seriously than anything Jen and I can say and teach them. And oftentimes it's been, I think my favorite part of this program is watching the kids teach each other and watch them coach each other. That has brought me to tears. It's amazing. And at this young age, but it just shows you what a program like this can do when you're supporting kids in the right way, what an impact it can have on them.
And then the other outcome is their learning outcomes are increasing as well. I'm
Right.
sorry, Carol.
No, I was gonna say, I've actually, I've visited the program and watched the kids do this. In fact, we meditated
together.
Oh,
We
we
did.
did. And, you know, when I went in, they said, well, Mrs. Jacobs, you don't have to sit on the floor. I've got a chair right here for you. What blanket would you like? They had these like weighted blankets. And you know, we did it, and then they took me around the room and actually explained to me what these things were in the room, and it was fascinating because I mean I had watched those children the year before, and they were in crisis, like
Yeah.
you would not even believe it was the same kids.
Right.
So it really is really quite touching.
It
you know,
is.
and just to have them be able to articulate it as well as they're able to, you know.
Yeah. We do still meditate.
Yeah.
For the
Yeah.
last 5
Yeah.
minutes of class every day. We turn off the lights. They each get a beanbag or pillows, and they find a spot in the room. They like the guided meditation at this age. So we are so grateful to have the smart board because there's so many great guided meditations on YouTube that we find for kids, and sometimes it's just kaleidoscopes of light, and we put on classical music, and that's the 5 minutes of breathing. Yeah. And so, you know,
Well, that
we s-
mindfulness too.
That's
is-
what it is.
Exactly,
That's
that's all
Yeah,
part of
we're
it.
hearing a lot about that, and I know our previous, school committee members, Rob Hoover and Alana Pellid, were very involved in that. They had read up a lot, and they would share it with the committee, which was really interesting.
It's one of the key components of
Yeah.
our SEL programming, K to 12,
Yeah.
is mindfulness meditation, not done in any, it's not religious, it's not
No.
spiritual.
Yeah,
That's
right.
not what it's about.
No.
It's simply about helping them to create a coping skill to self-regulate.
There's
and,
also
you
a
know,
lot of teachers, there's also a lot of teachers I know too, like the general education teachers that will turn on clips
Mhm.
for their students, specifically like more so in the younger grades. I think about like the first grade classrooms,
Mhm.
based on how much energy their students have.
Mhm.
If their students are kind of, lagging a little bit, then they'll put on this, the Go Noodle, and they'll
Yeah, the
boost
Go
them up a
Noodle.
little bit. The Go Noodle also has mindfulness clips too,
Yes,
so
it
it's
does. Yeah.
very accessible. It's all you have to do is just click on it and you're ready, and the kids love it. So
Oh, that's
all
amazing.
throughout the preschoolers use
Go
one
on
that
Wow.
their breathing allows them to travel on the screen, so they're
Yeah.
blowing like a little
Oh, and they see
like
themselves
little
move.
flowers that come
Oh,
off,
I love that.
and it travels, and then at the end there's a map to show how far across America they've traveled. So they've been using it all year, and they started in Boston, now they're down to like Florida right now, and they do all their breaths, and they point at their mouth while they're breathing, and then at the end they get to see how far they travel, and they love it.
They graphed I don't know if they still do, but at that time, they graphed their
We
meditation.
did, yes.
Yeah, so like how long.
How
so
many
they say,
minutes,
Oh, Mrs. Jenkins,
yeah.
look I could only do 30 seconds,
Before
last
and then-
month, but now I can do 3 minutes,
Right, so it's training their bodies too to
Mhm.
relax and
Yeah.
come down before they go back into instruction.
Yeah. They're lucky kids.
Yeah, it's been very successful. So some of the other important components too that I'd like to just kind of touch upon, if even briefly, is in regards to crisis intervention, behavior management, which is where our BCBA's are significant to the program, doing functional behavior assessments, and if needed, creating behavior intervention plans as well. They do a lot of work with students, again, if we go back a little bit to the school phobia, and, even getting students on the bus. My ladies have gone to the homes.
Really?
To help students get on the bus or ride with students, or, help with some home training aspects of showing parents how to work with their children, to teach them that it's okay to get on the bus and then come to school. So they really go above and beyond to really provide those services for our students. So I'm very impressed with what they're able to do. And additionally, they do some work after school as well. And I don't know if you ladies want to touch upon a little bit of that, just to give them a flavor of the types of things that you can do.
So some of the things that BCBAs can do is they can go into the homes, we train the parents, we work on teaching them life skills. We can also take skills that they've learned in school, they've mastered in school, and carry them over into the home environment, so they're generalizing those skills from one environment to the other. Sometimes kids will do things during the day at school, and the parents are like, no, there's no way that happened. And so it's a really great opportunity for us to take all the things that we've taught them in school and carry them over at home. But the most important piece of that is that we're able to really work on those life skills with them in the home, with various methods, task analysis, video modeling, and showing the parents how to do it. A lot of times we have parents who will do things for their kids and think that that's the appropriate way to do it. It's just what they know. So it's our job to come in and really push that independence, so that when they get older, they're able to look at appropriate job opportunities and living opportunities for them. So by teaching the independence, that will help them in the future, and it will help the parents as well. So that's a little bit of what I do after school in the home. We also do some parent consult. We have consults after school. We have consults during school hours. We do a lot of graphing, so everything that we show, we're all data. So you ask me for a graph, I've got a graph. That's my way of showing that's our way of showing if our intervention is working. So we have our before our intervention, then we have during intervention, and then we can see that skill mastered. So all of the programs we write from hand, they're individualized for those students. We train pairs to do it, who go into the home, and then we train parents to do that based on modeling from the para and modeling with our direct support. So we are very busy in the homes, and we've been very successful in the homes, in creating that independence for the students that we see.
Yeah, an example of that is I just had a student, she's been working with a communication device in school, and she's now just got it at home. And at home, when we do our home training, we work on dressing her. Because she's young, she's in preschool, she's just learning how to dress herself. But the compliance piece, she does not want to get dressed. She's always fighting us. Now that we have this communication device at home, where before it was taking mom 30 minutes to get her dressed, we've trained her on the device, and it's now taking her 5 minutes getting dressed, because she's able to use the device to tell her what she needs to do, and the student's able to communicate back, you know, let her know that she's all done doing what she's supposed to do. It's really
Well, so the
amazing.
device provides like steps?
No, but
to
it's
communication,
It's a
the opportunity for the
So-
child to
So
communicate.
instead of mom telling me, get up, get up, get up, get dressed, she has her device and she can say, it's time for your shirt. And the little girl can get up and just go put her shirt on.
But it takes Nicole going into the home to help train the parents in order to be able to facilitate that activity smoothly
Wow.
in the home environment.
So it went from 30 minutes to 5?
Yeah.
And we've
The mother
seen-
must be so thankful.
It's really wonderful. I
It's-
almost cried when she put her pants on by herself the other day.
Yeah, oh, that's,
How supportive or cooperative, I don't know the right word, are parents? Because I would imagine it's hard for them to sort of grasp something's not working right and you need to visit the home, or to some degree you're telling them, not that they're doing it wrong, but to
It
yeah,
depends.
different
This
way to
way.
do
I
it,
think
yeah.
it's very individualized. Like this particular parent, the little girl loves to hug, but hugging is her way of getting out of doing what mom's asking her to do. So I say to her, you know, I know it's really difficult for you, but I need you to keep your arms down and not hug her back. And it took us, you know, a lot of practicing, and now the little girl realizes, okay, I need to go sit on the potty. I'm not getting a hug until that's done. So it takes time and practice and kind of coaching the parent through, like, it's okay, she's still gonna love you even if you don't give her this hug, you know.
We do a lot of modeling, and I think at first when we go in there, it's, you know, it's kind of like that first time you meet someone, you know, you have to really, again, build that relationship. And they have to learn to trust you too over a period of time. And I think, you know, with ABA, a lot of times the interventions are really fast. You know, it could be just a simple tweak in the environment, and the student is able to pick up a new skill just like that. For example, communication with a device. So I think once you see that first aha moment, the parents are really open to, okay, these people know what they're doing, and I can trust them. And with that trust comes more independence, and they're able to really look at what we're doing and model from us, you know, and put our skills into practice with their kid. And when we're not there, they can have those same aha moments and share it with us. And every time I hear something from one of the parents, I cry. I cry because it's just such a good feeling, you know, because you know that you're a part of that. So.
And that comes out of the team meeting process, right? So you're not going into the home if they don't want you.
Oh, no, that's a team meeting process. We have written permission.
No.
We need permission, yeah.
I mean, that's
Hey,
not,
I'm here.
that doesn't mean that everybody's gonna be comfortable with whatever needs to
Right.
be said, but just wanna make sure everybody understands
yeah.
that it's
Yeah, we're not
all-
advertising to come into lots of homes.
Yeah.
It's very
There might be a lot of
Have a
parents who
payday.
might enjoy what
Right.
you have to offer.
But those are some of the things that we can do to help families and to help children succeed. So just kind of looking a little bit at the future of things to come and things that we're looking at. One particular tomorrow, there's a team of 5 of us, Principal Marr and some of the staff sitting here and myself are going to the Blue Ribbon for Excellence Conference, and specifically we want to take a look at positive behavior intervention supports and the possibility of implementing that within our schools as a way of really unifying some of the climate and culture. That's had some pretty empirical research that's really indicated some positive changes there. Nikki, Sarah, and myself will be presenting our social emotional program at the superintendent's conference this summer. So we'll be able to share that information, how we developed it and the success that we've had. We've had any number of districts contact us to visit our program, our SEL program, because the word is sort of spreading out there. People are interested in it. They know the type of success we're having. So we've had a number of other school districts come and, kind of look at what we're doing, talk to the staff, and really try and replicate that. the Behavioral Health Task Force has discussed having a book club. So we've chosen Lost at School, and we're having.
Oh, that's a great one. I
We're
love that
offering
book.
it across the district. It's wonderful, and it's a really
classic.
good jumping point for people who really don't necessarily have a lot of that information with regards to how a child might feel in school.
The
So we
basis
thought-
for the whole Think Kids program out of Mass General Hospital.
And it's
Mhm.
also what our program model is
Yeah,
based
I was gonna say.
on.
Oh, good.
CPS, Collaborative and Proactive Solutions,
Wonderful.
is children do well if they can. And they lack the skills, the SEL skills, and that's why they struggle, in addition to other issues. So that is really the model for all of our SEL programming. So that's why we're starting with Lost at School, so that we can start to do more professional development with gen ed teachers and with other people throughout the district.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful to hear. That makes me so happy. And if any parent is wondering, wants to learn more about the program, they could do well by starting with that book, Lost at School,
Absolutely.
by Ross Green.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Explosive child.
So we're looking at doing some, in-person meetings about the book, as well as having an online component as well. And, so we're discussing when we want to kind of start that process, but that's the book we'll be choosing. And again, we're looking at, having a universal data management system to progress monitor, same conversation for the academics, and looking at some universal screening tools, which would be excellent to have to really start assessing where our students are emotionally and how we can address their needs sooner than later.
So the universal screening, how far away is that for us?
Can we do it tomorrow?
Please.
Because I'd love to.
We can put our hats out and ask for donations.
Yeah, I mean, like anything else, you have to take a look at what are your district goals, what's in the strategic plan, what do we have budgetary that we can utilize to put some of these things in place. So it's sort of at that level of conversation, looking at it.
Okay,
But
so
that's
it's not-
certainly
yeah.
something that the team has, if you
I
want
wouldn't
to
say
speak
so.
a
I
little
wouldn't
bit
say
to
it's very
it.
far away, Barbie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could speak to it a little bit
Like
more.
within a couple of years?
Well, for example, so right now, we're doing something called the SOS program, and that's
Yeah.
what's been spoken about here.
Yep.
So that is a universal screening tool, but it's only
Yep.
to assess for depression and for suicidal ideation intent and plan.
Right.
So
And that's on the 28th, we're doing that
Well,
at the middle
right,
school.
so this year we've done 12th
Yep.
grade, 10th, and we're doing the 8th grade on the 28th. So the 27th, I believe we're doing it. And then we do the survey, and then I do assessments, with guidance to determine if they need to be, I do suicide assessments and to determine if they need to be sent to the hospital, et cetera. But that only assesses for depression and suicidal ideation. And as everybody here knows, one of the growing problems across all districts, but certainly in Georgetown, is anxiety disorders. We were talking about school phobia earlier and school refusal. So when you use a universal screening tool, and there's many of them that are evidence-based, but there's a couple that are really good. We can screen for, and these are preventative to see at-risk kids, so not necessarily kids that have developed mental health disorders, but maybe at risk for the development
Right.
of them. And those we can use ones that screen for, all kinds of mental health disorders, anxiety disorders, trauma, et cetera, including acting out disorders, the ones that people typically call behavioral health disorders, which is really the same as other mental health disorders, but those are things like oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, the aggressive kind of acting out versus the acting in disorders, which are things like, the anxiety disorders, the depressive disorders, et cetera. So that would give us a much more broad-based idea of what are we looking at in terms of who's at risk, and then using the RTI model, you can start to plug in services to be preventative and proactive as opposed to reactive in our approach to kind of behavioral health in the district.
Wow.
Yeah,
So that's a lot of
yeah.
information.
Yeah.
We appreciate your time.
I love this stuff. So.
That sounds very exciting.
You can tell everyone's very passionate about this area.
Well, I do want to make a few points as I'm watching all of you for the last hour. It's to me, it's been wonderful because you hear about special education, but you don't hear about this part of special education, and
Well, you hear about it if it doesn't go well. There's
But
children
you-
who are acting out, you hear about
But
that.
I can tell, every one of you, how good you all work
Yes,
together.
very
And
much.
that's so important because you have the ones at the beginning dealing with the preschool, and then you have to then talk to the ones going into Pembroke. And that, to me, is just really amazing to see that because it's so hard to be a child. And to just know that you have, you know, sometimes you don't have your family. So knowing that you do have a safe place to go really is very, very important for these kids. And I can, like, as you were talking, I already could see the tears in your eyes. So to me, it's wonderful that you feel that way. And I'm sure the parents of these kids feel, you know, so honored that you are helping their children. So I'm very impressed. I really am. I'm so glad that we've met all of you,
We
because
hear on a weekly basis, any one of us on a weekly basis, sometimes more often from the students and from their families, thank God you have these programs.
Yeah.
That's right.
Addressing the needs of
Yeah.
these kids, because the mental health population is growing, again, not just in Georgetown, everywhere. And, you know, these programs are considered model programs, like Donna was saying. Other districts are coming in and saying, how do we
Right.
create this in our own school?
It's starting younger and younger too, and that's like across the state, across the country. Like the ages from what I hear from colleagues, you know, around the state, through my other work that I do, also, you know, teaching workshops and stuff. But everybody is saying to me, you know, why is this happening now? Like, why is it earlier and
Right.
earlier? And so I know that it's not just us that's seeing that; it's the state and it's the country. So
Yes.
And
and
truly
why
is-
is it?
I don't have the answer.
But it does, it just, or are we more in
But it
tune?
hasn't been identified, you know, it's just never been identified
think
as
that.
such, you know.
There are a lot of
that. We weren't
societal
so in
pressures that
tune.
weren't
Yeah, but
there
there
too.
are more societal pressures.
There's a lot
You
of
know, and with technology.
family
comes that
structures
too.
are a little, you know,
Yeah,
tricky
different.
sometimes. There are things that have definitely changed.
I would not wanna go back to being a child today.
Not for
Because
today.
it's just too much. Even though I see that there's so much more support than when I was in school, but still, I would not wanna deal with the everyday things that children
It's
deal with.
overwhelming. They never
It
get a
is.
break anymore with, you know, the digital world that we live
No,
in. They
that's right.
never get a break from,
Right.
you know, the issues. But, you know, just to kind of wrap up, I just really want to reiterate how important each member of this team is with the different roles that they have, from, you know, the cognitive behavior therapist, the BCBA's, the adjustment counselor, the teachers with the experience of working with students with these concerns and, you know, challenges, and how they really sync together to produce such a wonderful program. And I'm really proud of these people, and I really feel privileged to have the opportunity to
Right.
work with them and develop this program.
Yeah, definitely.
I second that, that's
The
great.
feeling's mutual.
Yeah,
I mean, I
absolutely.
think, you know, Carol hired me 4 years ago, and I remember
right.
sitting with you and
Good
Carol
decision.
saying, you know, Carol had the foresight, you know, to, when she was sitting, I sort of,
Yeah.
as before
Yeah.
Donna came, as that interim kind of
Yeah.
special ed director, to see, you know, there was a need, and said to me, you know, come in and evaluate what exists and let us know what we need therapeutically in terms of programming. So she already saw that well ahead of the game, I think, and then we were obviously extremely lucky to get Donna, who's, you know, an innovative thinker and just a transformative leader. And without her guidance, you know, her direction, her advocacy for these programs, none of that would have happened. None of what we do could happen. She's focused tremendously on our professional development. You know, I could go on and on. But
We all
they
could.
they both support it, they advocate for it, they understand the need, and they understand, you know, ultimately that just, you know, translates into us serving sort of some of the neediest students in this district, and not forgetting them, the behavioral health kids, you know, across the board, not in Georgetown clearly,
No.
but across the board in other districts, they tend to be kind of the forgotten kids.
Yeah,
You know, the ones that we
exactly.
forget, and they're
That's
clearly
right.
not here, because
No.
of the leadership that we have.
They're not. I remember several years ago, sitting with the administrative team and thinking about, I remember the graph, we just put a graph up that said, you know, here are the 3 schools going across the top, and here are the sort of categories of kids that we know we need to make sure we serve. And then plugging in what we have, and guess what we saw? A lot of holes. And the worry that we all had at that time was, what's gonna happen when kids get there? There just isn't gonna be something. So that's why we made a conscious decision, and the committee and others made a conscious decision to say, we're gonna be serious about this and have a continuum of services. So, cause we want the children to be in our town. Their parents
That's the key.
live here, their peers are here. And what I love about the programs is it's not just like a place where we're gonna take those kids and, you know, save them. And, you know, these are kids that have a place to come, but they're really about being like everybody else. You know, learning to build those skills, cause this Lost at School, if you haven't read the book, The parent version is called the explosive child. But Ross Green wrote The Lost at School really for educators, but it's very appropriate for people who aren't educators. But what I love about what this program is building, his premise is, it's not willful. When children are acting out, it's not, we all wanna think it's because we just need to make sure they stop, you know? It's all about them not having the requisite skill level to know what are my choices. How do I get myself out of where I am right now? And what you see is the product of that. When you get that right, you see that the kids are the ones who are the beneficiaries of it, you know?
Yep.
And it works. Even the most tricky, challenged kid, you know, because I used to run a little behavior program when I was in Greenfield. And that's exactly, people just couldn't believe these were the same kids, but it really is about just making sure that you create the conditions for them. And you let them know, above all else, you know, you might be making bad choices, but you're a great person, and we're never giving up on you. And that's what you see here, and you see this with general ed teachers as well, where nobody's given up on kids in Georgetown. And that's our mission.
But that's the thing, kids are, you know, difficult as,
Yeah.
you know, general ed kids.
Yes.
So
Yes.
teachers, I have such respect for them
Mhm.
because I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
But to have the children that need, you know,
Yeah.
more, like what you're giving them, to me is just, you really have to have that special,
Yes.
you know, just like nurses, like I
Yeah.
always say.
It's
You
a
have to be a
gift. It's
special
a gift.
person to be a nurse, special person
Yeah,
to be a
it's a
special ed
gift.
teacher, and it really is. So it must be so wonderful for you to look back at a child, you know, seeing what they were like maybe a year or two, and then seeing how they've progressed and been able to
Incredibly
see
rewarding.
themselves with all the things that you've taught them.
We call them our shining stars.
Yes, we do.
Oh wait, there's our shining star.
That's so nice, and I love the fact that they just come into the room and say, "Hey," you know.
Well, if you wanna
that's
meditate,
obviously a
they
sense
invite
of-
you.
I know.
They'll take you.
Come on
They'll
in.
take you around the room and explain this all to you as
That's really nice.
as
Our
crystal
Our door is
clear
always
terms.
open.
Yes.
Come on in.
Well, thank you very much for
I
making
know, I
the time to
appreciate,
come
this is
out.
a long day for you guys.
So I'm just gonna quickly wrap up.
We thought you were
I know,
done.
you thought we were done, sorry.
The special, the CPAC?
I wanna
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
the CPAC, while we can
Yeah.
kind of broadcast it out there. I first of all would like to thank Shelby Walker Smith for the years
Absolutely.
of dedication and devotion that she's done in running our CPAC for the last at least 4 years.
Yep.
That I'm aware of, and she's done an outstanding job collaborating with myself and with Pam as the representative from the school committee. She has had to resign, that happens, and so what we're doing is we're making a request out there for special education parents to please come and join us. We're looking for people who would like to, you know, help lead the process, whether you're president, co-presidents, treasurer, just come on in, join us, you don't even have to take an office. So we're going to have a planning meeting, the first one's going to be, May 11th, 9 a.m. at the Pembroke Elementary School, and we're gonna start talking about and planning for the coming school year. So I'd really like to see some folks come out. We've touched base with a few people who are interested, so if we can get an increased interest out there, that would be wonderful.
That'd be great.
So, now I'm done.
That's great.
So just
Thank you.
before we wrap up, I do wanna just recognize Nikki. Nikki's accepted an administrative position, good for her, bad for us, in the Southbridge Public Schools, and she's starting actually in May, early May, so they're desperate to have her, ASAP. But, you know, I mean, you can see for yourself, you know, what Nikki
Yeah.
has brought to the district, but, you know, I just
We were
wanna-
talking about this earlier, and the superintendent was like, well, they're getting a great
Well,
person,
you know,
but
we
we're losing it,"
we
you
never
know.
wanna hold people back, right? We always wanna be
We
about,
do.
building people's capacity, so I said to Nikki we were having an email exchange, I said, I'd rather have, you know, people that are phenomenal for 3 to 5 years than people who are mediocre for 10 to 15. So, you know, you accept the fact that you know, people who are, you know, shining stars are often going to, you know, move on, and, you know, it's sad and hard, but But we do wish you just the very best, and thank you so much for everything you've done in your
Thank
time
you.
here.
I appreciate it. It's
Yeah.
been
You will be
amazing
missed.
Your team will miss you.
Absolutely.
I
More than you
miss
know.
you very much.
I know.
And you can't tell any of them to come to Southbridge.
I won't recruit, I promise.
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Thank you, Margaret and Julie, as well, for having your section.
Oh,
Yeah, so where are we now?
that's great.
I have contacts now. Thank you.
Yeah, that was very enjoyable.
I had no idea that we had such an extensive program.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew when I was there, it was much smaller, but I did not realize how much it grew.
Yeah. Pretty impressive.
Okay, we now have,
Oh, do you want these, do you want to take your books with you?
oh, yes.
Is that mine?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I need those.
I would, yeah, I didn't think you wanted us to keep them.
Thank you.
See it? We can get it.
Thank you.
I usually do that.
Okay, so we have, subcommittee reports.
Yes.
Okay. Michael, do you want to talk about the budget and finance meeting today?
Sure. We met, I
Michael's
was
killing me.
expecting
I'm
that.
all right talking.
We met earlier today about the budget, for next year. I guess FinCom approved, I don't know the number off the top of my head.
It's 14,117.
14, it's 14.
14,117.
14,117, which is not
2.26.
2.27.
2.27%, which isn't what we were hoping for, but it is more than what our sort of initial discussions were.
Yeah.
So we appreciate the help with that, and also to sort of continuing the conversation for the future. What else was there?
We talked about this year's budget.
This year,
Oh,
which
right.
there's a budget freeze, a real one, in place.
It's a real budget for you.
Yeah. We were getting a chuckle today.
No budget freeze,
There-
open. Joe, you don't mind approving these?
So just being mindful of that. I think that was about it. Unless I'm missing something.
No, we don't have to get
No.
into the whole logistics of,
Yeah.
of the money that we have left. Yeah, it was a good meeting. It was good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Governance, you guys have been busy.
Yes, we have.
Mostly working on the bus.
The bus
The
transportation.
bus
yep.
survey.
Yep.
So we've come with some options. We looked over the, where is it?
Talk.
So we were looking over the survey and the results of the survey, and it was really interesting that we're no further than we thought. You know, the biggest issue still remains to be that there are no sidewalks. They would not let their kids walk on these main streets, you know, 133 and 97, and crossing those main streets, you know, because they are only less than 1.5 miles. So, you know, there were some suggestions, well, we could do a focal, you know, drop-off, and then the bus would take them from that point, bring them to school, so, but then it runs into issues, they're going to be there early, what do we have, you know?
Right. And I'm already, if I have to drive them there, I'm already driving.
And that's what they're saying, right, you know, if we're already driving, and, you know.
But I think one thing you have to keep in mind, so don't sell yourself short, is that you're trying to come up with options. They just might not work,
Right.
but
We've
you've
looked
done
at
a lot of
everything,
work.
we've looked
You really
at
have.
all
Looking at that
angles,
list,
trying to keep everybody's, you know.
You've reached every point. And you ask the people by survey, and it just, the numbers just aren't there to make a big
The
change.
buses aren't there, you know, if we had
Well, the
another
money, the
bus,
buses
it,
aren't
it,
there.
you know, would solve a lot of issues, but the buses are expensive and, you know, we just can't get another bus.
Right.
You know, so.
Right.
We're still looking, we're still trying to put things together, but that's what we've come up with so far.
Well, we appreciate the time that you've taken to do that. I don't think there's ever gonna be an easy fix.
Well, I
for
think the hard
buses.
part is, every time we go down one path, it was like, oop, that's not gonna work, it just seemed like
It's
there
like
were.
being in a maze.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
there were so
You
many-
think you're making headway and there's the wall. You're like, no, we gotta go back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And this was the first year with, the new grade configuration, so there was bound to be, some difficulties, and hopefully the new software will do
Right.
something to create
And
better
that's a good
routes. I
point,
mean, I know
Pam.
it needs, it's gonna need the human eye looking at it. You can put in all these data points, which is more than what we have worked with before. But then that's not gonna be perfect either. It's gonna be a process of continual improvement, just for the routes. And then we were talking about at the safety
Safety.
meeting, that Cindy McKenzie from NRT would look into the possibility of doing that run from Longview Apartments. And
Solely,
she seemed,
right.
solely, she seemed to feel that if there were at least 20 students on the bus, that could be a viable way to go, to help some people, some families.
The bus company is really easy to work, I mean, Cindy's really
great,
great
yeah.
about coming to all the meetings and trying to figure
Right.
out what our issues are, and so that's,
And
hopefully that will help.
I mean, I don't know if there is crowding on the buses. I see, there's creating a
There's one
picture
or two
ID.
that are pretty crowded.
Yeah.
I think the picture ID is a great idea.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out the
And
logistics
it sounds
of
to me like most of the other districts have that, because Cindy's like, you guys don't have picture IDs, and I like how the,
Having a roster.
having the list there and marking the kids off.
That was really hard, that was tricky.
Yeah.
No, tell me why?
It's just extremely difficult. We tried it for 3 days. And we had the list of all the children that were on the bus.
Right.
And called them when they, called them to line up to get on. But not everyone is on the bus that day. So
Right.
you just really never know, okay, well, where are they? Okay, they're not on the bus today. And it sounds easier on paper, and then the reality is.
I can imagine that, yeah.
Yeah, I think
So we really don't have we really still don't have a
good
pattern.
system.
A great system of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we really were looking at was if there was a bus accident tomorrow, who was on the bus that day? We get it that there's another secondary thing we wanna do, which is to figure out like how many kids actually ride.
Well,
Right.
But I guess that's my point, you don't, on every day,
It could be different
obviously
kids.
whoever's there is there,
Right,
but we don't have a roster of who's there, so there's no written
Yeah.
checklist of who's on the bus, we just don't do that every day.
well, we'll keep talking about
Don't you
it.
think the software would be able to produce that eventually? I mean, if they create like route number 5, why wouldn't there be a list of students?
You have to register for the bus.
Yes.
Not who's
But
riding.
when you're on
Right.
Tuesday, okay, Johnny, line it, to find out exactly who on that day is going to be riding the bus,
Right.
it's just extremely time consuming, because some kids don't ride the bus, they might take it every 2 weeks, so
Mhm.
you call them for
Right.
3 days in a row and they're not there, it doesn't
Right.
mean they're not gonna be there the 4th day.
Right, exactly.
So, to
Yeah.
have an accurate count every day is just incredibly difficult.
Difficult.
It's kind of the cost benefit of taking that 10 or 15 minutes to get it done.
When you're trying to get kids
When you're
out
trying to get everyone out and everyone
15
home.
minutes is
and,
a lot of
yeah.
time when you're trying to.
No, but I thought when we talked about it at the safety meeting a couple of months back, it was because we had the time to do it. Like, there were some buses that there were like 2 that are there, right at dismissal, but the other ones are a lag. So that's why we didn't think it would be, because the kids are waiting anyways.
But that's what I mean, even saying it, it's, like, why was it so difficult? It was just extraordinarily difficult
In
to
practice.
do.
Skater ideas, you get for us.
I know. Okay, negotiations, Pam, we're all set, we have the signed,
Yes.
Good to go.
All set.
that's good. Public relations,
We have not met since
Okay.
the last.
Yeah, no, we haven't.
safety, met today?
Yes, we met today. And So we did the Alice training at the high school on April 8th, and that was conducted by officers Derek and Adam, and that went very well. There were teachers asked questions and were
Mhm.
answered.
Yeah, that went really well.
Yes.
The Alice training went really well.
Good. There is a list of supplies related to Alice to help maximize safety, of which we have some on the list, but because the budget is frozen now, we will be waiting until the summer to consider the rest of the items, such as ladders and wasp and hornet spray and just
I'm laughing at her.
various
The budget's
items.
frozen. She's got a whole long list of things they want to get.
Yes.
Margaret already sent it to me, don't worry.
Let's see. So the Chief Fred Mitchell said that we still have more fire drills to do this year. We have to arrange it around, when, we don't want them to be he doesn't want them to be disruptive. The phones at the Pembroke, the adjustment made so they can become an intercom. And somebody
We're
from
doing that at the high school,
Metropolitan
too.
is coming out to do the same thing at the high school.
Good.
Yeah. 911 lines have to be internally, Mike is gonna work on getting that so that there's more information about exactly which room the 911, potential 911 call would come from. The chief asked, what is the policy for a medical emergency? Do the teachers dial 911? Margaret said that teachers may call the nurse or 911 depending on the situation. It would, because there's a wide variety of situations. By the way, the emergency, there's some emergency manual, which is it is being updated.
Crisis plan.
Crisis
Right.
planning,
Crisis.
yes. That is being
It's
updated,
ongoing,
yes,
right?
it's on, and it will be done for the fall.
Did you go to the Alice training? Were you part of that?
I did
You
not,
did
no,
Okay.
no.
It was excellent.
I was gonna ask. It was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was good.
Oh, Laura went.
I went too.
Oh, and you did too?
Yep. Yep.
Very informative and.
Well, we did it a couple weeks ago at Pearlie. So we did it with the preschool staff. Yeah, it was very interesting. Nothing that you would have ever thought that you would think to do.
Right.
Based upon all the other stuff we had heard, like stay in your room and all that stuff.
Right, so it's.
We built barricades and threw stuff at people and tied up people and. It's very different from anything it's very different from anything you've ever heard. It's either if you
Right.
can run, and if you can fight.
Right.
You know,
It's fight or
you-
flight, right?
Yep.
Yeah, what he does, the first drill he does, he has them do just the regular lockdown.
Yep.
And then, so then he goes in and he basically
You're
says,
sitting ducks.
bang, 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 right? I mean, that's it. Then he teaches them the strategies, and then he'll put them in scenarios, like he might say, he might get on the intercom and say, there's a gunman leaving the guidance office. So they had to decide, based on what room they were in,
Right.
what they were gonna do. Cause if they were too close to where that person was, they were barricading. If they were down at the end of the hall,
They were
they were
going.
getting out. So, and then the one he did was very interesting, is he had them all go into the corridor and face the wall, like they were all at lockers.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then there was no warning. He came around, and people swarmed him, and it was over in 2 seconds, right? Because, that's a real scenario. And then the last scenarios he went into individual rooms, and he there was no alert. So he left the room, and then he came right back in. And then, some people ran, some people, if they were close enough, they swarmed them. Some people threw their, whatever they had. He wouldn't let them throw staplers or anything. He gave them balls.
Scissors in our hands
He gave them
before,
balls.
but no,
But,
paper
one
balls.
of the teachers, he had
Soft
goggles
little
on. One of the
Nerf
teachers hit him
balls.
right between the eyes, and so, I mean, it was excellent, and the teachers felt really good about it.
Oh,
The
good.
feedback was
That's
incredibly
good.
And to
positive.
have a situational exercise is really good.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
can sort of experience it.
Yeah, so we talked about it at safety today, so you'll have new teachers that get, new staff that will get hired. We just have to talk to the chief about how we might do that. But, every year, there's gotta be something for people that are new. And then the other thing we're gonna do next year is we'll do it with the kids. So we have to,
Right.
plan
Mhm.
all of that out and figure how we're gonna do that, but the kids are already asking, but yeah, and so now we'll still have, so we talked about the 3 commands, so if it's Alice, then it's plain talk. This is what we know, there's a gunman,
Alice is just for active shooters.
Just for active shooters. Then, we won't be saying code blue anymore, but we might say lockdown.
Yeah.
Which is what everybody knows now. Or we might say shelter in place, which means you stay in your room, nobody goes in and out, but you can keep teaching, kids can keep working, you're not gonna sit down and sit quietly, on the corner, because it would depend if there's.
Like, for instance, if there was a bank robber in downtown Georgetown.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want anybody leaving the school,
No.
but the
But
threat
you might
is
be able
not
to
in the
teach.
school.
Exactly. So it's all part of the safety planning but I have to say, thanks so much to the police department because, Derek Jones and Adam Raymond were phenomenal. But, as I said, the chief has been very generous with, his financial commitment to this and our partnership is wonderful.
That's great.
It's all good.
So, we went over that. Then I thought another interesting thing was, Lieutenant Hatch was just talking about the internet bomb threats that several other districts, not our district, but several other districts around have been
There
receiving.
were 11 today.
Overhead one.
11 today. And-
Danvers,
Beverly,
Beverly,
PBD.
PBD.
And they seem to basically be coming from abroad, and the FBI is looking into these, but because, they're coming from like Russia and, other countries, so that's kind of what they're about right now. It's part of a recent wave. Donna Robbins from the Georgetown Fire Department will be handling the Safe Students Awareness for Fire. Fire safety presentations right now only for kindergarten, but they're hoping to receive a grant soon that will allow them to present the program to grades K through 8. The fire department does not want any candle burning at ceremonies. They appreciate our school asking permission and
National Honor Society.
National Honor Society.
Oh, I was
But
like.
it's not considered
going on
a
with this
safe
I don't know.
practice. And so the
Do they have
request
it? Do they have candles?
is
For years and years and years.
us to use battery-operated candles instead.
Okay.
He said, think about the station nightclub fire. He said he's from Rhode Island, that's it.
Sound like we have fireworks.
Well, the other option is you can do that. We would be able to do them, but we'd have to pay
Create
to have a DJ.
Right, you have to hire people, yeah.
Just standing there with this.
The battery
They're
really
only
needs
good
to
for a
be
few
used everywhere.
seconds.
Right.
but I don't blame them.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't
I don't
blame
blame
them.
No.
Yeah.
I don't blame them. Okay, thank you, Pam.
Sure.
Okay, the Start School Later committee, Suzanne and I went to the high school and spoke with the staff there and just let them know what the committee has been working on. And we offered, we gave up some options as to what we're looking at, but we also asked them if they had any issues to get in touch with us and just let them know that it was something that the committee was researching and we'd love to have their input. We know it's important to get information from everybody that's gonna be impacted, so the staff, of course. We're then meeting with Pembroke staff on May 11th to talk to them, and then May 24th, in partnership with the PTA, we're going to have a community parent forum. I believe it's 7 o'clock at Pembroke. I haven't confirmed that, but I think that's what it is. So I would love to see people come out to that and have a lot of questions that might be on their mind answered.
There's just more and more media jumping on this.
Yeah,
So
it
much
certainly
more
seems
information coming out.
Just the
I mean,
last
it's
couple months. few
the
months.
last couple months, it's just exploded. Across the networks and in the different media. It's just.
Yeah, there is a lot of things going on out there on the news and everything else.
A lot of impressive scientific organizations backing recommendations,
Right.
so.
Yeah, so we'll get into all that at the parent forum. Mary Lyon, a teacher at the high school and also a committee member, has put together a great PowerPoint presentation, and we're gonna definitely get the audience involved, just providing some good information, medical research, things like that.
I wonder if that would have been good to have shown the middle high school teachers as well.
Yeah, I know Peter did ask me,
You'll
but
be able
then.
to go back again.
Okay,
you know,
that'd be
I mean,
great.
Because we're
Yeah.
not doing it for next year, so
Right, we
we
just
want
wanted
this
to give them-
conversation to keep going.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
So it's
Yeah, I think the meeting went well, and it definitely, talking to different stakeholders, you find different concerns that they may have that we
Didn't even
didn't
consider
Right,
or
like we
think about.
knew what the obstacles we were facing, which are the obstacles that most other districts, like the transportation, athletics, things like that, but then when you throw other things into the mix, it's great to have them share that information with us, so, I look forward to talking to the Pembroke staff too, because it will be impacting them as well.
Absolutely.
May 11th.
So, that's going good. Superintendent's Evaluation Committee? Ann?
Yes,
I know
we
you met.
met, and, so Cheryl and I and Carol all came together, and Carol brought us a draft of 5 performance goals based on the previous school committee recommendations and, drafts that we had worked on earlier. And the subcommittee approved of the goals, they look very good to us. You proposed that they would be 2-year goals.
Well, I think I can't remember
Is this
what we
something that
talked about.
we would,
Well, you're gonna talk about it coming up here somewhere.
right, are we gonna talk about this coming up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or do you wanna talk about it now?
Well, you
Yeah,
probably
no,
should get
we'll-
through everything else.
Yeah, we'll
Okay, let's
wait.
get through everything else.
Baker Adams?
We met a few days ago, last week.
Yes.
I forget when it
Time
was.
flies.
Time flies.
A while back.
And we actually, I think we have a good, close to, if not final draft. More tweaks, I would say, than anything.
Yeah.
Over last year, and tried to sort of incorporate feedback of everyone in the committee who was in the process last year. And looking to put it out on Monday. I don't have the timeline in front of me. But as soon as this Monday,
For the,
to make it available.
yeah,
But
yes.
then to be due, I
Due
think
on
it's
13th, yeah.
May 13th.
And did you get my email?
I did, yes,
Okay,
and
good.
I made that.
That made
that
sense,
change.
good, okay.
Yeah, so the application deadline's the 16th of May.
We should change that.
The 16 or 13?
It says
13th.
16th.
Okay, it says on the front, May 13th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where are you reading the
on
16th?
The
Oh, on that
process
little thing, great.
timeline,
No
yeah.
worries, we'll fix that.
So will it be the 13th?
And
then we'll get it on
Well,
the
I don't know
16th?
what.
The
Michael-
13th is a Friday, the 16th is a Monday.
Monday, well.
It doesn't actually matter.
Why don't we
but-
do, why don't we, I was thinking maybe give them the weekend.
Yeah, I'd give him
the weekend.
They're all
Yeah.
gonna be done early.
No, because then it goes into, can I accept this one late?
The,
So
actually,
let's do the 16th.
the,
Yeah.
to sort of make the process easier, 16th is totally fine.
Okay.
It is gonna be submitted online.
Yeah, I love that.
So it's actually, it sort of takes away some of the what time is when did I get it in? If we wanted to, we could just turn it off at 4 o'clock on May 16th.
If it's on an online, okay, yeah. Go on.
So that's an option. So
But
yeah,
they
it-
can still do a hand.
No.
No.
You're gonna, I thought, I then misread, I
No,
thought it was
there's
both.
going to be a sort of a putting the survey out, or not the survey, the application out, so that they can see the various questions and the
Okay.
the various parts of
But
it.
they have to
but
go
to submit
online.
everything online. So that way, essentially, it's a I don't know, it's a 10-step process
yeah,
of making
okay.
up that number.
And it eliminates the inability to read some
Yeah.
of the handwriting, which
Right.
was pretty difficult at times.
But they need to start and finish it in the same sitting. So this way, they're not. There are 2 essays.
Oh.
They're not writing the essay live. It would be kind of a copy and paste of the essay.
Okay.
So this way, they could read the question, write the essay.
So they
copy
can't
and
save
paste
it as a draft and go back to
There
Oh, that's
is n-
interesting.
There is a mechanism, but it gets messy in terms
Okay.
of making sure that we know whose application
Hmm.
started today connects to the
Okay.
final
I
application.
wonder how
submitted
that's gonna
on-
go
I was gonna say, I'd have
with
trouble with that.
with the child, because I'm just thinking, they could be, these seniors, I don't know how they do it. With all the things that they're applying for, and I'm just wondering, I'm sure they do like the easy stuff, and then maybe put aside.
But I suppose if they
For the
have
essay.
if they have that
Yeah,
in
they're gonna have
advance, they'll have it all done, and when they're ready to sit down, they'll just bang it out.
You think so, huh?
Well, I'm just using the best scenario
If I
possible.
were them, I'd go on a word
How long do
processing
you
document
think,
and
I
do
mean, just
the
thinking like, I
essays,
mean, I know it would be unique to
you
an
know,
individual
and
child,
then
but.
cut and paste.
Let's
right.
say,
But you'd
let's say
need to
a
know
child
ahead
who
of
might
You can't save it.
have more trouble filling it out, would you say, cause this, sitting down in one fell swoop, do you think it would take somebody a couple of hours?
No. If you take out the essays,
I would
just
say-
because there's writing, I think it would
I'd say
take.
an hour with the essay.
Yeah. If
With the two essays?
yeah, I would
Okay.
encourage, and we can in the language of sort of introducing it,
Yeah.
tell them to write the essays first, not to write the essays live, but short of writing the essays,
Oh,
I think it'll probably take 10 minutes. I mean, it's a pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah, most
thing,
of it is pretty
short of
quick, I
the
mean,
writing
maybe
piece.
the
Well, if they
right,
have
the
all the
typing all the
financial and
clubs
all
and stuff like that
Mhm.
might be. But I agree.
I love
if-
that
if
it's
they
online,
write the
but-
essays
Let me-
first,
I'll
they
look
can
at
just
the
type in.
editing.
So they'll get a paper version of this.
They can
It'll
take.
be posted with it.
Okay. So then they can write down all these
Mhm.
things
But they have to submit it online.
Correct.
and then submit it online.
And it'll make
And then
Laura's
they
life
can-
a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I
Stripping
mean,
the
so the
names out.
guidance
Won't be
department,
Because it'll
the
just
guidance
happen
department will
automatically.
tell them that they
So
can't
how will
save
they
it.
strip how will we strip them?
Essentially we're gonna mail merge everything, so this is gonna feed everything into a big spreadsheet.
Okay.
And then you
Okay.
mail merge it out, so then we get physical application for each
Okay.
person, but you just leave out the name and
Sure.
email address field.
Yep.
So it's,
Yep,
So
that is
it's a lot
definitely
less.
Yeah.
I mean,
Laura,
Laura
that's
used to
great.
spend, I think, hours.
Oh my gosh.
Days.
No, this is great.
I'm sorry,
Sorry,
it's-
I didn't
you
mean to
could-
minimize
we could
it,
go
I'm
back if
sure.
you'd like.
It was a lot of whiteout.
I was gonna say, or just buy you bottles
Oh
of
my
whiteout
gosh,
anyway. Or
Yeah,
Sharpies
I think
or.
it's worth,
Okay,
definitely
that's
worth a
good.
try doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it is gonna see how it works.
Yep,
And
exactly.
obviously, most will be submitting it on May 16th at 3:55, but hopefully, and I'm sure some will before that, so we can sort of kind of gauge the experience.
Okay.
Yeah, cause
live.
it'll just pop into the database, right? Yeah. As soon as they have it done, they can submit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, thank you for all the work that you put into
Yeah,
that,
that
I
was great.
appreciate that. School building,
School building, yes, we met this last Tuesday, and, okay, so Pembroke. The required elevator inspection found 9 fails. None resulting in a safety issue. Our certificate is in good standing, but we will be meeting with the vendor and, seriously asking them to overhaul or, fix whatever's
Yeah, that
whatever's
hasn't
wrong, so
done well.
this does not happen again. It was basically unacceptable, the inspection, so, but nobody is in danger. It's like, things that are not safety issues.
Yep.
Okay, the final building punch list walkthrough with Brate will take place next week. A lot is gonna be happening on both of these building projects in the week to come, over vacation. The transformer at the shed has been moved. The bad rocky soil used as loom will be removed, replaced, and relocated behind the school. And they're also gonna use some to level out and grade the area around the sign. The audio system manufacturer will visit next week. The bad audio in the cafeteria that's been
Been
causing
after that
everybody great
for
heartache and.
months.
hopefully
Yes.
they'll fix it.
Apparently it's been determined there's a frequency issue between the 4 systems in the cafeteria, the gym, the music room, and the band room.
It's like they're too close.
Something like that.
That's what it looks like.
So, that's something hopefully will be fixed next week. The soccer field will be seeded next week. $300,000 is being held in retainage for site work at this point. The owner's contingency remains at where it's been at $8,218. A credit for the soil is still being negotiated. And the parking lot lights, Chuck is going to, remember we had talked about how bright they were? He's gonna look into them, and I talked about the bulbs being 3, 4, 5. And I went up there, they are very, very bright at night. I mean, I can believe that they would damage people's eyes. They were supposed to be a 3, somehow we ended up with 4s, so he's gonna look into what we can do. And the Georgetown Electric did look a truck was out there on Tuesday looking at the crooked telephone pole, and they're gonna get back to us about what they can do for us. So on to the high school. LD Russo is working with the schools over the punch list. There's been one small roof leak and another leak in the walls will be fixed next week. Another infrared scan of the roof is going to be done. The consultants next week are gonna come to recommend solutions to mitigate sounds coming from the chorus room. We know that Mike has been putting in acoustic insulation with sealant. I don't know, they're gonna recommend solutions and we'll have to work with whatever they recommend. The gym floor is gonna be completely leveled next week. The school building committee approved the 124 room signs, at $5,020 with Braille
Braille.
notations, yes. That was my first move, I moved that motion. Passed.
Well done. Good
Not,
work.
thank you, not unanimously, but, it passed. In any case, yeah, just for consistency and so that we can be. Right. And, well, we wanna be ADA compliant, you know, that's the thing. Peter Durkee is very concerned about the tank buried next to the school, the high school, full of diesel oil. He wants them removed, as if we do not, they could leak, and its cleanup would cost a lot more than the removal. It's not part of the building project, but the discussion will continue after Peter speaks with Mike Farrell about how best to fund the tank removal. The owner's contingency now sits at $100,000. And let's see, that is it, except that we were going to do
A tour.
a tour after April vacation, because that's when the wall on the
Yeah.
first
The wall
floor.
will be done. So the 28th, before the April 28th meeting?
That sounds good to me.
I can send out an email.
We'll just put it April 28th, at 6 o'clock?
Sure.
Is that- Or,
Will we need that long? 6:15?
I wouldn't say so.
6:15?
6:30?
6:30?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we're not gonna.
I mean, 6:15 would be
6:30.
fine, between 6:15,
6:15.
yeah, show up at 6:15
April
and then
28th.
we'll
Thank you.
probably
Okay.
get organized by 6:30.
Yeah, right. I'll send out an email too, just to confirm that.
The
Okay.
building committee is gonna do
A walkthrough?
a walkthrough too at some point. Would you want me to invite them, or do you want?
No,
Okay.
they can do their own.
can do
I
their
think
own.
that, yeah, it's
That's
probably
fine.
easier.
And there's a lot of them and they'll take their
And
time.
I think they wanted to do it at for their next meeting
Yeah,
anyway, so,
we'll do ours
okay,
separate.
okay.
So
that's it.
So the gym floor, tell me again about that?
Peter Durkee says that there's some area of the gym floor that's
A
not-
little
Yeah.
uneven?
Yes.
So they're redoing the whole floor?
Well, they're gonna fix the unevenness.
Okay, and this is the big gym?
The big gym.
Okay. And that's gonna be done next week?
Yes.
And that's all under,
Project.
Yes.
are they paying for it
The project's
again?
paying
So
for it.
it's not like the company's coming back because they think that
Oh, I
he's
don't know about
correct?
that, but, yeah, I don't know that.
Okay, but
We're
the
not
project
for
is
it.
paying
We're-
for it.
Yeah, we're,
Okay.
I know, we're not paying for it.
Okay, that's good.
Yep.
I know.
It's a good thing.
Okay, thank you. We already did a budget update.
Yep.
You don't have anything more to add, Joan, do you? Okay. I will make a motion to approve the boys' assistant lacrosse coach stipend of $1,200 for the 2015-2016 school year as presented.
So moved. Second.
All right. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have the timeline for the Baker Adams. I'm sure you've had a chance to look at that. So we're keeping it at 5/16 deadline?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so the chair will make a motion to approve the Baker Adams scholarship process and timeline as presented.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And the chair will make a motion to approve the superintendent's evaluation process and timeline as presented.
So moved.
Question real fast, just what is, so 2 years meaning 15, 16, 16, 17?
That
Or,
was, we were gonna discuss that.
Yes, so what we were thinking, in line with what I think the committee was saying at one point, which is, we sort of don't wanna just do it on one end point. right? We
Well,
want-
and I
we
think
want
Mike Gilbert,
some-
we talked about that
Yeah, we want
as well.
some discussion.
Oh, for sure.
Periodic
So,
goal
I personally
updates.
wasn't for
Yeah,
the two-year
right.
process, but,
Well,
I get it.
you're still gonna do an evaluation annually.
Right.
Of what's done in that
Time frame.
in that time frame, right, exactly.
So are the goals, and I'm totally interrupting you answering my first question.
That's fine.
Are the goals that we're going to be discussing at the end of May, assuming the timeline is what we go with, are they the same goals that we're going to be talking about in May of 17?
Yes. Unless, I mean, it's an annual process, so you can always add things if that's what you want. But the stuff that we're talking about here came from the stuff you pointed out that you wanted to do. So
Right.
some of those things, unless we are gonna be very, very specific about, like,
Yeah.
it's a very specific action that can be
Right.
done
That's
within
not
a
right.
time frame of a year, then
You can add it in.
you can add it in,
I,
right?
I think it was just confusing here, it says interim check April 2016 and final check April 2016, which I think you probably meant to
Oh,
be April
yeah,
2017.
yeah,
Under
that's
goal
That
3.
was just a typo.
So it's just April 2017.
Yeah, that's probably
Yeah,
what it was.
okay.
Yeah, so the thought would be that you'd still do an annual evaluation, and then you'd get updates at
Right,
strategic.
as to how
Coordinated.
close
Yeah.
you're, how much
Strategic
on
things
time
I
we're
wanted
around
to
on.
that
talk about,
year.
like, if we could have summary updates with or without evidence, but probably without evidence unless somebody wanted to see evidence. In August, October, and January, with evidence available upon request. But we would have evidence midway, I mean,
Yeah, I think that's
In
what we
May.
have to talk about, is what do you need for evidence?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, what you put down here for evidence, I thought was adequate.
Yeah,
yeah.
Did you agree?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, but would you wanna see that in, only in May, or do you need to see more August, October,
Well, I would think,
and
unless we
January?
have a question that you're not doing what you're saying you're doing, then I would,
Right.
and you should be able to easily
That's right.
provide that.
I should.
So I would say
Right.
keep it at May,
Yeah.
but if at any time somebody thinks,
Well, so that's what we wanted to just
That's
chat
what we
about.
wanted
So
to
normally
talk
it would
about,
be,
yeah.
unless you wanna change the timeline, normally it would be April to April, because if you have a turnover in the board,
Right.
then that person wouldn't necessarily
Oh,
have the
right.
opportunity to complete. But because this year we don't have a turnover in the board, right, and we're kinda getting this process
Yeah.
a little bit late, we thought, well, gee, maybe we could, for this year only, we could extend the timeline, so I can put stuff together and, you know, there's not the same rush that there normally would be.
right, when a
You
new
know,
person
like,
comes in.
yeah,
Sure.
cause otherwise we'd have to do it at next meeting,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah.
cause May's gonna come quick. So if
but
you don't
we
have a
wanna-
problem with that, maybe we could just do that for this year, and then we'll just get back on
April,
a
No,
April to
Right,
April
so
thing.
this year we'll
So
do May.
right,
Mhm.
next year it'll be April.
Yeah,
It would have to be, yeah.
yeah,
because
so,
it's
Unless-
yeah, so that everybody could have the
Unless there's no
opportunity.
turnover.
But you don't know that. You
What?
wouldn't know that in April.
We
if there's
don't know
gonna be
that, right.
A turnover.
No, but, so if we.
So keep it at April
If
for
we just
next
keep it
year.
at April, yeah.
But this,
But
because
this,
we
because
did
we're not
start it a little
yeah.
late.
And we're not
Yeah.
changing, people.
Right. But are you all okay with the evidence being provided in May unless
Yeah.
at
Unless,
any
sure.
time? So we'll just keep it at that.
I think my only, I know last time I had trouble, I guess it was last year I had trouble, sort of, we have a lot of presentations and we talked about our RTI tonight.
Yeah.
And I think, for me at least, it's hard to see, well, it's one of the goals, and that's actually an update that relates to your goal. We got updates throughout the year, but they weren't, I'm gonna be honest, they weren't titled, this is an update about superintendent's goal number 3. So I think I had a disconnect between, we had a great meeting with Donna, but also recognizing that was
Part of
one
the
of your
goals.
goals, for example.
Well, that came
and
out
I
of
don't
the
know how to
committee.
reconcile that
Well,
necessarily.
that came out of the committee. That wasn't one of the goals I suggested.
Okay, or, yeah.
that
but
came out of the
I was
committee.
using that as a,
Because what I tried to do was I got information from the subcommittee based on feedback that you had all given to them, right? The things
Mhm.
that you cared about. And, so that's what we tried to work around, is that.
And, but then you
Sure.
took it all and you
I put it
came up
into-
with this
yeah,
draft
yeah,
of the
'cause
5
that's
goals.
what I
So I
assumed.
presume that that's
Yeah.
all right with you.
I use
Yeah,
our
yeah,
slides just
I have no,
because Donna was
listen,
just
I,
not-
listen, I gotta do the
specifically.
work anyway, I have no
I mean,
problem with any, you know, I mean, whatever you wanna see, I'm happy to,
I
you
mean,
know,
in a
produce.
sense, I feel like you have a more, a better sense of what appropriate superintendent goals are than.
Yeah, yeah,
We-
well,
I
I
mean-
mean, we know what.
Well,
the
it's
work-
very
we're working
interesting
with
because
the-
I've
we know
gone
what
on
the
to
work
other
is.
districts
We know what the work
to
is.
see, to get an idea of what, and it is different.
And we have,
You know, because that district may be going through a new building project,
Right,
so
exactly.
we're beyond that, so then it's, all the goals are wrapped around
Yeah,
that.
they
and
change.
So,
Well, and
you would be the best to tell us what your job is, but I think having the committees,
Input, sure.
yeah,
I think, and
I
it's been a
appreciate
very
Oh, no,
collaborative
you
process,
are
I
the
feel.
ones that, you absolutely have a right to, as you should, to, make suggestions to goals, for sure. You know, but the standards drive a lot of it, and these are goals in addition to it.
right, and then
Right.
we have these, you know, goals, these, standards
Yeah.
here. We didn't want this to be overlapping and,
right.
you know.
But it is tricky, because
Same
it's kind
thing.
of like, well, yeah, what, there's so many things we could put in for evidence, right? But that is why we do the meetings, the things throughout the year, because we're really working off the strategic plan. That's a big
Yeah.
part of our work, but we can make it more explicit as well.
I would appreciate that,
Yeah, we can definitely make it more explicit.
if only just for me.
Yeah, no, well, so like when we talk about technology, there's a goal for that,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, we can definitely make that more explicit, for sure. You know, we talk about the community forums, right? So there's,
And I think that
Yeah,
would only.
and the student
I was gonna
learning.
say-
Yeah, and it would only help you, Carol, you know,
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
labeled
no.
it.
Yeah.
well, the whole budget development, I mean, you know, that's, and response intervention, yeah. And again, we, you know, obviously we can play with the process and we can tweak it in whatever way works for the group.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the extra time, because I'm thinking to myself, I don't know how I would collect the evidence for next meeting with all the other stuff that's going on, so this is great, I appreciate it. And I'm glad we don't have to have another turnover in the committee,
Right.
so that's kinda nice.
Okay, so I already made a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, I think that does it for the agenda.
Yep.
And there is no
Executive
reason to have an executive session this evening. So the chair will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:28
Beat it.
PM.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Great, thank you, good night.
Good night.
Suzanne said she
Said 9:30?
Yeah, we-
It's 9:30.
We should sit there for
Next-
2 minutes.
Next meeting, can you come in and say 9, Suzanne?
Yeah.
Next
Come in and say 9?
Next time I'm gonna say 9.
Thank you for staying.
No, you.
So you,